Hey, it's Hugh Hewitt, and when I want to know what's going on with the Cavs, the Browns, and the Tribe, I tune into Sports Fix.
Hey guys, only a few more preseason games to go before the regular season of football kicks off, and you can start the season winning $2 million in Week 1 at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site. It's the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $10 million in prizes up for grabs, including $2 million for first place and $1 million for second. 1 week fantasy means no season-long commitment. Play where you want, when you want, with the players you want today. Just pick your players, pile up the points, and pick up your cash. It's that simple. You've never experienced football or fantasy football quite like this. Every game feels like the playoffs, even Week 1. And every broken tackle, every spectacular catch takes you closer to the $2 million grand prize. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code Spreaker to play for free for a shot at $2 million in the Week 1 Millionaire Maker. Enter Spreaker for free entry now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Catch every UFC pay-per-view live in full HD at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go. Let's do this. Let's get this thing off and running. Let's make sure everybody can hear everybody here. How you guys doing? It was of course, Monday morning here as we get rolling on the Sports Fix. Looks to be good. I am so ready to rock and roll, and I'm glad I am. I'm glad you are, because we have got a lot to get into, you guys here, of course. Breaking news going on around the Cleveland Indians we're going to get into. We've got a Browns game that happened the other day to talk about. A whole weekend of things to get into, and it's the end of the month, final day. Here we go again. Blowing right by. The month of August wrapping up today, and we'll be kicking off September tomorrow. So we've got a lot to get in with Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan, and Everybody Hates Cleveland. Dan will be with us here a little bit later on, just about 20 minutes or 25 minutes from now. I'm going to try to open up the phone lines early, perhaps get a couple of you guys in if we can. I know there's a lot to touch on, a lot to get into. I'm fired up. In case you can't tell, I'm on ginormous coffee cup number 2. My coffee cup is the point of conversation many places we go. This past weekend kicked off some Friday Night Lights, and I'm telling you, not a person could walk past my station without going, tell me that that's not coffee. I said, yes, sir, and it's the second or whatever one of the day. But anyways, I'm fired up, ready to roll. Hope you guys are too. Let's do the thing, the Sports Fix thing, as they call it. Welcome in, you guys, to this thing we call the Sports Fix across the Sports Fix Radio Network. I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the radio dial, in the ring, the Big Daddy of Destruction on the microphone. I got a million nicknames, but they all lead me right back to saying thanks for having me here and being with me each and every day. Jerry Myers is what my mama called me. You can call me anything you want, as long as you call me, as long as you're here talking to me each and every day, having the Sports Fix thing going on here across the network. Maybe on TuneIn's radio app worldwide. Maybe on Spreaker and Mixler and their respective digital and mobile apps. Perhaps you're enjoying the show streaming directly off the sportsfix.net, our home base, as we say, the one-stop shop, if you will, for all things Cleveland sports, all the Sports Fix stuff, all the replays of the show. Bookmark it if you haven't, thesportsfix.net as well. Welcome into the thousands of you guys that listen every day on digital delay on sites like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, on all of the different places that you guys download, feed, subscribe. Thank you so much for being with us, and as we say, for getting your fix, whether you do it on the phones, on the social media, however you do it, you guys are the lifeblood of pumping things through this show. So get on and get to pumping, baby. 216-539-7535, the number to call. 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, email, facebook.com/The Sports Fix, Twitter @The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us anytime, day or night, The Sports Fix @AOL.com. Again, facebook.com/The Sports Fix, Twitter @The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, The Sports Fix @AOL.com. Quickly, as we're getting things rolling here, thanking people, thanking you guys for being here. I want to thank DraftKings for once again being a contributing member of the Sports Fix, another partnership here as we start another football season. You guys heard the promo at the beginning of the show. I'm not just plugging DraftKings, not just working with them. I actually am one of the guys that uses DraftKings. I play on their site, and I did very well. Matter of fact, they sent me an email the other day and reminded me that I did quite well last season and that I should get ready to do it again, and I am. I will say that it's a lot of fun, but from the business aspect, definitely glad to have them back on board. DraftKings, DraftKings.com. You'll hear me talking about them throughout the football season. Man, we're here. Football season. We got one more preseason game left to go, and we're rolling. High school football's here. Talking about football. Thanks to you guys for tuning in, whoever did that was there the other night on 1330 WINT, the Integrity Radio High School Football kickoff of the season, and the game of the week, Willoughby South, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. I'm going to tell you this. I said this all season. I dare anybody, and I don't care if you know a single person that was involved in this contest the other night. Go back and if you can find it on a TV replay, I know that the Time Warner here in Northeast Ohio replays a lot of the games, and I do believe they were broadcasting or recording that South game the other day. If you can see it, watch it, because I'll tell you what, that was a heck of a game. And the last, for basically the whole fourth quarter, but the last 5 minutes particularly, just an emotional wave up and down. It was really, really a good time. Plus, it felt good. Beautiful night, beautiful weather, stadium packed. I mean, you couldn't beat it. Couldn't ask for anything better to kick off the season. And hell, I'm following that one up with one heck of a round two this Friday. I will be live calling the play-by-play for the game of the week. This week, it's a big one. How about that for week 2 action? St. Ignatius, and Menor. Week 2, I'll be on the call of the action, play by WINT, and of course, all of their other ways that you can listen to the show. Like many of you that listen to the show here on TuneIn, 1330 has a channel right there, but a big one, Ignatius and Menor. And then follow that up. I'm following Menor right on down to Cincinnati, be down in the Queen City, down there broadcasting it back up for you guys up here in Northeast Ohio on that one. So the next couple of weeks should be a lot of fun. But I just sat there and had to, for those of you that are listening, you may have heard me say this comment a couple of times on the air, just breathing it in, going, man, can you believe that it's here? Football season in general, high school, college, pro, doesn't matter, because I actually stopped over a friend's house on the way home from the broadcast, and I said, man, do you remember us sitting in this exact same place when I came home a few months ago from my last basketball game of the basketball season? And I looked at you and said, oh man, what am I gonna do when I sit here and don't have any games to call? Football's so far away. Oh man, I got used to this. It was such a fun time last season. Football rolled right into basketball, and boom, what do you know? Here it is again. I don't know. They say as each year piles up on you, they start to go by faster and faster. I'm definitely experiencing that. I don't know about you guys. It's here tomorrow. We're gonna click this calendar. Hell with long term. Just in this year, we're gonna flip it over to September already. Here we go, off and running into the fall. But anyways, Friday Night Lights kind of got back into the swing of things. It felt good to be out there. It was a great time. Cannot wait to get back out there this Friday for Ignatius and Menor. Then I got out of town, got out of Dodge for the weekend. It was my first weekend with no pro wrestling, no beating myself up for the entire weekend. I did my football broadcast, and then I headed up to the islands, up to Port Clinton for the rest of the weekend. Thought it was going to be a great weekend, nice, relaxing weekend, until I came home and realized that I lost my eyeglasses somewhere between the hotel room and home. So I don't know. Nobody can find them. They're gone. I'm sitting here blind as a bat right now. So if you hear me stuttering around, it may be because I've got to squint hard enough to figure out what I'm trying to read on the screen in front of me. But other than that, great weekend, and thank you guys again. Whoever tuned in and listened to the broadcasts on 1330 and all of that stuff. And now here we go. Let's kick this thing into another week. I see the phone lines already rolling here. I'm going to take some of your calls in just a minute, but first, let's kind of set the stage. We got a lot of things to get into. Dan Wismar is going to be with us, as we said, from Everybody Hates Cleveland here in just a little bit, and we're definitely going to dive all into the Browns. We'll talk some Buckeyes. We're going to talk a lot of Tribe, too. I mean, I was already fired up, ready to talk some Tribe today anyway as they continue. You know what? Friday, I was in the press box over there at Willoughby South, and a bunch of us, some of the News Herald guys, some of the newspaper reporters, were just small talking, and sure enough, the Indians, we're watching the results of the game as the things are going through, and it's really hard for me because I'm on the air to watch too hard, but I'm kind of getting updated during the commercial breaks and stuff like that. Tribe got the win, and I said, I'll tell you what, they sweep the Angels this weekend, and then maybe we've got something to talk about here. Let's see where we are on Monday, and sure enough, they went out and did just that and took care of that business over the weekend. Here's one of the problems, and I haven't, obviously, Mark Shapiro, I'm going to get into that in just a minute, as that's the back end of the weekend here, what's coming out today. But the Indians, the on-the-field part, this is the problem with the way you played the first half, the first, 2/3 of the season or whatnot, is the Indians are red hot. 8 of their last 10. They swept that series. They're really starting to get cooking at home. All of these good things happening. And guess what? They ended the weekend the same amount of games back in the wild card as they were when the weekend started, 5 games back. And that's because that you're winning 8 of 10. So are the top couple of teams above you. And that's going to hurt. Now, you did close the gap in between. You pulled the Angels out of the wild card. Well, Angels started that series, the second wild card team. They are down in the competitor region now. They've been pulled out of that slot, and that was great. You still made some ground up. You sit 100, but again, it will give you reason to have more interest in the back end of the season. Now, obviously, this season, or this series here with Toronto, bears a ton of interest for so many reasons. I mean, talk about the Indians getting red hot. The Indians are just a little spark, a little kindling fire compared to how red hot the Toronto Blue Jays are coming into this one. So let's see what happens. I was just talking to somebody off the air. I said, let's see what happens here now before we get too crazy with things as far as down the stretch. But baseball, the Indians showing some life here. That's one of the things I like the most, by the way, about this, is the fact that they didn't roll over when they could have, when so many people were ready to start watching Buckeyes, start watching Browns. We're already talking Cavs training camp. Let's look at some young guys, and here we go again next year. These young guys, a lot of them are the spark behind this and the top of that lineup. And trust me, we're going to get much more into the Indians here momentarily, but a lot of that is all a function of things, and there's a lot of interesting things to talk about there. But the most interesting, of course, being the announced, and we talked about this a week or two ago. And when Dan joins us here in a little bit, I'm curious where he's at on this, but I believe when we talked about Mark Shapiro potentially talking about leaving the Indians here, when that first started to come out, I told Dan, it may have been last Monday right here. It was either in the last week to 10 days that we talked about it. And I said, hey, Dan, man, I think where there's smoke, there's fire. I've talked to some people, and to be honest with you, I could definitely see. And then, of course, we went down the rabbit hole of perhaps and there are now rumblings when I talked about perhaps the Dolans getting ready to sell this thing, because you look at some of the things that they've done financially with adding profit centers to the stadium, all the different things that they've done there. Those are things that you sometimes do when you're cleaning up your books, getting rid of the big money contracts, trying to not spend any more money than you have to. Usually those are the types of things you do when you're cleaning up your books, because you're perhaps looking to entice a buyer. Looks like the Indians not looking to sell the majority interest, the Dolans, but looking for some new minority investors, which really hey, every once in a while, we know what we're talking about here when we speculate on some stuff like that. But it ties right back into Shapiro, and Dan and I were discussing this last week and the week before, and it comes to fruition as the word got out over the weekend and officially now, out there for everybody that Mark Shapiro is, at the end of this season, stepping down with the Cleveland Indians after 24 seasons and moving to the Toronto Blue Jays to be not only the president of that organization, but of also Rogers Center and helping run that massive facility as well. And, we can talk about what you think happens with the Indians from here. The Dolans, by the way, came out with a statement this morning. They're not seeking out any external candidates for this position. They are happy of organizational order, that they've got things set up as far as line of command and chain of command and all of that stuff. So won't be looking to shake the tree and bring in some fresh opinion from the outside, which is something that I thought may have been a good thing to come out of a situation like this. But either way, if you're Mark Shapiro, and you've got to be honest, and I know there's some people, good riddance, this and that, because they lump everybody up into one group in the front office, and they're all called the Dolans, and they all stink. And I get that some of you feel that way, and some people are a bit more broad-based when they look at things, and they can separate the forest and the trees. I actually am very curious to see what Mark Shapiro does in this new position and with a new organization, one that is not afraid to spend the dollar, one that is not afraid to, they're not afraid to spend a lot of dollars, not just the dollar. You know what I mean? I'm very curious, and I know that that's got to be part of the thought process. I mean, you spent 24 years here with this organization, and a large amount of it under the Dolans here and under a very select way of doing things, and budget constrictions and limitations and all of that stuff. I'm very interested to see what this man can do and what type of organizational structure the Blue Jays evolve into over the next few years with Mark Shapiro. And I know that's got to be, again, part of the curiosity. If I was him, I would be interested in saying, hey, I'm just wondering, what's it like on the other side of the tracks? What's it like in a different position? And that is a different position to be in. So I wish the man no ill will at all. I'm very interested to see in how things go. That's a heck of a situation to go step in. That is absolutely for sure. But I'm also interested in the fact that the Indians say, hey, we're not bringing any external considerations here when it comes to filling the order. We're going to do things internally and stick with what we've got. Now, I like that from a consistency standpoint, but at the same time, one of the things that I saw as a silver lining of perhaps Mark Shapiro choosing to go somewhere else when we were talking about it last week is the now possibility of a fresh set of thinking being injected into the Indians front office. And that doesn't mean that everything that they do is wrong. That means that sometimes you need a fresh voice in the room. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to have an opinion that is not colored by the groupthink that has been, around for X amount of time. I mean, I think that anywhere. When I'm making my own personal decisions, I like to reach out and get opinions. I don't just ask people's opinions and then go, yeah, well, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. I intentionally seek out various different you want different voices in the room. And I thought maybe that might be a side benefit of this. And that's not to say that internally there's not guys thinking just like you and I, perhaps going, hey, boy, if they ever asked me what I would do, here's what I would do. And hopefully the Indians do have some of those, and maybe somebody gets an opportunity to rise up the ranks here through that. But it'll be interesting to see how the organizational power, reshakes out after this. Also, as I kind of just stepped on, and I'll get more into this with Dan, the investor thing is now word swirling that the Dolans are indeed seeking perhaps multiple minority investors to bring a cash infusion perhaps into the franchise here. It makes a lot of sense. As I said, it looked like that was coming. I just thought maybe they were looking to sell the whole kit and caboodle, but now it looks like they're looking to pull the old IPO scam. No, I'm just kidding. It's, where you get some people to give you some dough, but you get to stay in charge. And I love it. Hats off to you businessmen that are able to do that. And it looks like that's what the Indians are trying to do, though, and attract some minority investors. I know that the way they played 3/4 of this season wasn't going to help in any of those regards, but it sure has the way they've heated things up recently. And I can hear Mike Brandenburg as he's in class right now, getting things rolling for the school year, throwing his iPod across the room and going, Jerry, I'm done. I can't even. Indians finished this season hot. That's all he's going to hear all offseason is what? Look how they played in August. Look. All they got to do is carry that over to next year. I can hear my man literally breaking his iPod as we speak. We'll get Mike's opinion on stuff later on this week. I'm going to talk to you guys. Before I get Dan Wismar in on the conversation, we're talking Tribe right now. Mark Shapiro on the road again, leaving, well, not again, it's been 24 years, but he is heading out of town at the end of the season, taking over the president job of the Toronto Blue Jays and the whole Rogers Center complex there. We're going to talk Browns, we're going to talk Buckeyes, all of that with Dan. Right now, we're talking Tribe, and right now, we're talking to you on the phones, 216-539-7535. Caller, you're up on the Sports Fix.
Yeah, good morning, J-Rocc.
Hey, good morning. That's a voice from the past. My man Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing good. A couple things.
Sure.
Over the last 700 ball after Ancona, so that we get hot when it's almost to the end.
Oh, I know. It's a trademark of these teams. You and I have talked about that off the air, too, Francona with these Indians. But, okay, think about what I just said, because I'm telling you, there's Mike right now is toasting me his coffee right now at what I said. That is the one fear that I have, because right now you can think about what I said, Bruce. Look at and we'll talk Shapiro in a minute, but look at the Indians. They get hot. They've had a good run. They're still 3 games under 500. So, I mean, there's still this weekend. You sweep the Angels. You got all these good vibes going for yourself. They didn't knock a half a game off of the wild card because all of those teams, the top couple of teams there are red hot too. And so that's the problem that you have when you got 4, 5, 6 different teams in between you is you don't control anything no matter how good you play.
Okay, now with that being said, we're heading to Toronto, who won 22 games this month.
I know.
They were 22-5.
I know.
So,
I think it took us till June
we'll
to
find
win
out
22
what kind
games.
We'll find out what kind of team we have once we get there, and if we can play with the big boys or if we're still, an under 500 team.
I mean, even then, Bruce. I mean, I just wonder. Too little, too late is a lot of the way I feel about this Indians team. Of course,
there's still a lot of work. I agree, but it's still 31 games to go or something like that.
Here's what I worry about is this is great, and I'm all about it. Hey, I'll sit here every day and I'll wear my Indians hat backwards, and we'll rally it up every day, and we'll chase it down to the 162nd game of the season. But right now, what have we played? 129 games so far this season. So basically, you've got 33 games left to play. Am I right? Unless my math's off there, you've got 33 games left in this thing.
33.
Still 3 games under 500. Now, that's a month's worth of baseball, and I understand that. That's the good thing about a long season. And I'm definitely not just, hey, like I said, I'll chase this thing down to the very last out if we can. But you just wonder. You've still got 5 games minimum to make up just to get yourself up there, and that is just to be there at the end battling it out with those teams. I mean, that's it. And when you look at this weekend and the fact that 6 days ago they were 5 games back of the wild card, they're still 5 games back of the wild card, and they haven't lost a game. That's unfortunately the position you put yourself in here, is that you can win every game the rest of the season. Doesn't necessarily mean a thing at this point.
Right, exactly. And
it stinks.
That's the point of the whole season is that we got so far behind that we almost have to play 700 ball, like we had said earlier.
Yeah.
To catch back up.
Absolutely. And so, and I'm with it. And that's the point that I was making jokingly about Mike and some of the conversations we've had, though. But what you just brought up, 700 ball after the break, the last 2 seasons, and now here they go doing it again. And what has happened after each of those seasons, Bruce? We've all watched it happen. The Indians have done what? They've done nothing in the offseason, and then they've said the reason that we're not going to do anything is because look at how they played in the second half of the season.
Exactly, and we do the same thing at the trade deadline every year.
Right.
You know, we make trades to cut payroll, but we get nothing to actually help the team the rest of the way.
I mean, that's the scary thing to me is let's say the Indians run this thing out. Let's say they play 700 ball for the next month. They win 20 out of these 30 or, 22 out of these 32, whatever. And let's say they do that and they finish 2 games back, 1 game back, whatever. They finish outside the wild card, or even if they get there, which would be, to me, even, but let's say you fall short. How do the Indians make? It befuddles me, and that's the reason I'm stuttering with my words, because I don't even know what to say, because all I'm going to do is see the last 2 off seasons repeated once again. They're going to make minimal moves. They're going to say, we like what we saw out of this guy, that guy, this guy. He played better after June. He played better after August. We've got the greatest pitching in the world. We're going to win it all next year. And they've done that 2 years in a row. And I'm telling you, I will argue with anybody that this Indians team is better than they have been the last 2 years. And I know that sounds stupid because you are what you record are, but had they gotten the complementary pieces, had they gotten the Indians are a jigsaw puzzle of pieces that didn't all fit together just right. But had you just gotten the couple of complementary pieces that they need, this Indians team should have been better. We're wasting some amazing pitching here this season, and really last season is when it really started to come into its own anyway. So, you know what I'm saying there, Bruce? Either way.
Exactly. But see, in my case, I've been an Indian fan so long and have been, I don't want to say let down, but, my expectations were a little higher at the beginning of the season than they usually are at the end. So I just kind of look for above 500 record. If they made it over 500, that's a winning season to me. I mean, you don't. I've seen this act so many times where, we do absolutely nothing to improve the team, and the only thing you can really shoot for as an Indians fan is 500.
Man, that's horrible. That's horrible, and that's why Mark Shapiro is going to go. I don't care. I know there's some people going, "Hey, all right," but I got a feeling that he's going to do just fine where he goes, because I don't think he was awful at his job. I do believe that there was, I don't want to say a lack.
It's working with your hands cuffed behind your back. I mean, you have a very low budget.
But here's the thing.
And you have.
I think there was a trade-off. I think that there was an unsaid trade-off between the front office and the ownership, because it was almost like, okay, we're giving you some handcuffs to deal with as far as the Dolan's looking at Shapiro and Antonetti. Okay, we're going to give you budget constrictions, and you have a set parameter of how we want you to do business. At the same time, because of that, I don't think they had the full accountability that perhaps another organization would have, because I believe that all along the Dolans were well aware of the limitations that they put on their front office, and they were quite happy with the level of mediocrity that you could get to most seasons. I think that obviously...
Okay, with that being said, though, don't you think that it comes down to a judge of talent?
Oh, I do. Mean, I absolutely do.
Shapiro made some great trades. I mean, him and Antonelli worked out some great trades. I mean, they got us people that we could actually use. Nobody wanted a Kluber,
Oh, I agree. And that's why I'm saying when they were put in positions like that, they evaluated talent very well, And I
remember the first trade that Shapiro made, and I called the Indians. That's how I met Curtis Sandberg to start with, because I had lost my mind when you traded Bartolo Colon for 5 guys I'd never heard of.
Yeah, that was his first trade, huh? That was the official first one?
As far as the one that, caught my attention and torqued my jaw a little bit. But the players that he got turned out to be pretty good.
all along, we've talked about that over the years, Bruce, as far as the trade return being better than the free agent return and the draft return. Although I will continue to argue that in the last few years they have righted the ship as far as the draft picks go, and I think we're beginning to see that here now. I mean, I think that, I still think that people under credit what the farm system's developing, and I think over the next few years you're going to keep seeing guys come up that are Indians farm guys. But anyways, it was bad for a few years, and I do think they've corrected that as well. That's why I said I'm not sitting here going, oh boy, wait till this. I'm not making a prediction. I'm very interested to see what Shapiro does in a completely different environment, but also with a completely different set of accountability, because this was the backside of the point that I was making about the Dolans, is I believe that there was a lowered set of accountability because they understand, being the Dolans, hey, well, I'm kind of only giving these guys so much to work with. So as long as they can get me close to 500, give me a playoff run every couple of years, we can live in that area because we're not losing money, whatever. I do think that there was a lowered standard of accountability. Flip that to Toronto, that level of accountability goes through the roof because you have no handcuffs. You have no constraints. You're given the keys to an organization that's ready to spend, contend, and make something happen. So I think the next few years will be very interesting, and it will prove what kind of guy Shapiro perhaps is when it comes to guiding an organization, because there will be no excuses. This is an organization that's going to back you to the hilt for what you need to get the job done.
And Shapiro is the only accountability. He becomes the president and CEO.
Right.
He is the bottom line.
Right, and that's why
the guy gives him an open checkbook of $300 million and says, "Go out and put me a championship team on the field."
I joked.
It ends at him.
I joked last year or something about Billy Beane, going to a place like Boston or whatnot and saying, man, you got to wonder if you're on that side, what it's like to live on the other side of the tracks, as the old expression goes,
Or the grass is greener on the other side. We're going to find out how green that grass is.
Because think about it. If you've been running this team and you've been living under, 60, 70, $80 million payrolls, now you're going up there. That's an outfielder. Your whole payroll is an outfielder where you're going now, It's like that's a culture shock. So I'm interested to see. And if he mishandles it there, then it doesn't, then that really kind of writes the tale, And I'm interested to see how it plays out. But I definitely don't blame him at all, because I would be curious to take that opportunity too. Plus, how often does somebody spend a quarter of a century with anything, business, job, relationship, organization, whatever? That's 25 years, man. That's a long time. You can't do nothing but say, hey, best of luck.
The last link to the teams of the 90s.
And that's where a good way to end this conversation, Bruce, because that's where I wanted to end that. That is now the official break of the final link in the chain there now, from the Jacobs Indians to the Dolans Indians now.
That was the last link. Now he has he went from a champagne taste on a shoestring budget to champagne all day.
That's it. All day, every day, man. And I'm interested to see what he does next season and with the next few years with that. And interested to see, too, with what the Indians do as well. As I said, they're not bringing anybody in from the outside, which, to me, that's
Does
not
that
what I
mean
wanted
that
to hear.
they're going to promote Chris Antonelli to president?
I would think
Would
that
you
that would be.
think?
I would think that would be the natural chain of command there with that. I'm not positive, obviously, but they said there will be no search for an external candidate. So I would believe.
No, what I got out of that was that they're either going to promote Antonelli or that they're going to wait till they find a minority owner and collaborate on who they think should take over.
Well, and that's quite possible, too. And by the way, how about that? I told you, man, I said, if you look and if you know how sports teams do business, everything about what the Indians have done for the last 2 or 3 years spelled out to me that they were cleaning up shop for something, and I thought maybe they were looking to just sell the whole kit and caboodle, but look, they're looking to bring in some people with some money. They're looking for some minority investors. Like I said, I always think that's a little bit of a hustle. That's going, hey, come bring me your money, but let me still run the team, you know? But anyways, but that's what they're going to do.
Well,
and so I knew, I could just tell from the outside that was what the Indians were looking to do.
Yeah, he wants to sell, 49%?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the maximum you can sell and still control that thing, man.
Right. So, he's looking for actually for one guy to come in and help, but he's willing to take a group. So, and Derek Jeter's name has been kicked around. He has a group that he would like to invest.
Well, I would assume that to just be one of those, hey, I'm looking to get in the game as quickly as possible. Where is the best situation? You know what I mean? Where's the first available situation? That's interesting. All right, guys. I've got to keep this rolling. Bruce, anything else?
That'd be it.
Right.
I wanted to mention that Josh Tomlin has certified the fifth starter has the fifth starter in our rotation.
Again.
He has looked good the last couple outings.
We keep getting a guy in there, and then he'll settle in for a few, and then it goes away again. And by the way, how about the original fifth starter, Gavin Floyd? And I'll give him credit, man. I always say you can tell a lot from a guy in a situation like this. Guys that are just in it for the paycheck, they get the paycheck and they call it a season and they'll try it again next year. But this guy has spent his entire season. Well, nobody knew Gavin Floyd was even still playing baseball. This is a true professional. He's out there rehabbing so that he can come back and maybe make one or two starts here at the end of a season to get himself back.
We're going to use him mainly out of the bullpen from what I understand.
First off, I'm all about it. If you do believe that the Indians have a run and that they're going to make one more run at trying to make the playoffs here, I've got no problem having as much pitching depth as we can. But my point was just to the professionalism of Gavin Floyd, because here, we talk about, a Nick Swisher situation and how long, and the rehab just, and you honestly felt like this was a guy that was not dying to get back out there on the field. It was like, well, I'll just, rehab until they tell me I'm ready to play. And this guy spent his entire year getting back just so that he can hopefully get on that mound once or twice more here and get out there so that he can set himself up for hopefully a comeback next year. I mean, I get it. And there's Tribe fans out there right now saying, well, we just gave him $4 million for nothing. True, point taken. But as a pro, the guy has busted his hump to get back. And I just always respect guys that go out there and do that.
Well, let's look at it this way. $4 million is not $15 million.
Very true.
He's willing to come back and help us out at the end. The guy was going so long, I forgot about him.
Oh, I know. So, and that's what I mean. A lot of people just forgot. So if he can come in and give you something, great. I mean, at least you get something for your investment. But I just mean as a pro, he could have very easily. The money we wasted over the years, $4 million is basically nothing. Nothing.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly. It's a half of Mark Reynolds. Anyways, Bruce, my man.
Yeah.
I've got to hit it, and we're breaking up anyway. I appreciate the call. Good to hear from you again, my friend.
All righty. I'll talk to you later, J-Rocc.
You got it. That's my man, Bruce. 216-539-7535. Actually, I'm going to hold tight on the phone calls. Got a couple of you that called in and left messages. I'm going to play one of them here as we head out to the break, and then I'm going to get Dan Wismar in on the conversation, and we'll pick up there. Talk Tribe. Got a lot to get into with the Browns as well. Talk about that, Buckeyes, and more. But let's go one more phone call, and then I'm going to open the phones back up on the back side of the show, and I'll give you guys another chance to get in. But here's another call that came in while we were talking to Bruce here just a moment ago.
J-Rocc, it's your friend from Northfield. J-Rocc, Mark Shapiro, whatever, he's dancing all the way to Toronto. He can't get across the border fast enough. He'll finally have ownership that will allow him more than an $85 million budget. The only thing the Indians have been allowed to pick up J-Rocc,
I don't
it's
know
your
what
friend
happened
from
there.
Northfield.
I
J-Rocc,
apologize.
Mark Shapiro, whatever. He's dancing all the way to Toronto. He can't get across the border fast enough. He'll finally have ownership that will allow him more than an $85 million budget. The only thing the Indians have been allowed to pick up are these Kmart blue light garbage heap, people like Moss and such and such and such. And he got lucky with Casimir a couple years ago, but you can only go to the garbage heap so many times. Bourne and Swisher have tied his hands now fiscally. When you have 1/3 of the payroll tied up in two people that are busts, you're not going to win. It's a shame that they've blown so much quality pitching. They knew coming into this year they didn't have any hitting, and what did they do? Go out and get a guy who has two artificial hips, Brandon Moss. Such a waste of pitching. Mr. Shapiro is not going to look back. He'll finally have ownership that will let him do things. The Dolans have to go, and thank God the Dolans are looking for some new investors with new cash because they're not going to spend any more of theirs.
There you heard it, our good friend the mayor, and we'll talk some more about just that and more. We're talking Shapiro out the door. I agree that he is dancing. He can't get across the border fast enough, and that's not disrespectful. That's just saying, sometimes you want to experience the grass on the other side. Some cows are like, hey, that's mighty green over there, man. Not just a cliche. Thanks for the call, Mayor, Bruce. The rest of you guys that we missed, I'll open the phones up later. Take a break, get the news, and get Dan Wismar in on the conversation. We'll pick right up there, talking Tribe, talking Browns. Good performance the other day. How much of that was a mirage? And let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks, because all of a sudden, I'll tell you what, from bad to worse. I said something last week. Man, what was it? Me and Dan talked last week, and we were just on the radar here, man. I'll tell you what, for those of you that haven't heard, Johnny Manziel may not play at all this season. I told you last week that I thought the Browns were setting you up 2 weeks from now to say Johnny Manziel surgery out for the rest of the season, and I've heard some rumblings that is, in fact, perhaps where this thing is heading now. We'll talk about that, and there's a quarterback floating out there now. I mean, I'm glad we didn't give up our whole draft for this guy a few years ago, but maybe now we can get him for a 4th-round pick. Washington, ready to kick RG3 to the curb. I'm not an RG3 guy at all, but I'll take RG3 over JM12 and JM2 and everybody else that we've got here all rolled into one if it'll get us through a couple of months. Either way, I mean, it's something to discuss, and we're going to talk just that. Browns, how about that defense, by the way? That should have made you feel a little bit better because they're going to need a whole lot of that come this season. We'll talk Browns. We'll talk Bucks, not the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Ohio State Buckeyes, and we're talking Indians and more with my man, Dan the Man Wismar from the Cleveland Fan, from Everybody Hates Cleveland. He joins us next after the news here on the Sports Fix.
That's right. Just roll along. That's what you do. Just roll along. That's right.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into
The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picosia. We have breaking news. Team sources telling ESPN's Diana Rossini that Washington players were informed this morning by the coaching staff that Kirk Cousins will be the starting quarterback against Miami on opening day on September 13th. Sources also tell ESPN the coaching staff wants to cut ties with Robert Griffin III, but is meeting resistance from owner Daniel Snyder. It's back to court today in New York for Tom Brady and Roger Goodell, hearing number 3 in the suit challenging Brady's 4-game suspension. The Patriots opener is only 10 days away. He went 6-0 in August with a 0.43 ERA. Jake Arrieta closed out the month in style last night in Los Angeles. He struck out 12 with a no-hitter against the Dodgers in a 2-0 Cubs win.
You see other guys around the league do it, and you want to be a part of something like that. So it's, not only special for me and my family and friends, but, for the organization, my teammates. My teammates embracing me after the game was extremely special.
It was the 6th no-hitter of the season. Serena Williams begins her quest to complete a calendar year Grand Slam tonight, opening round of the U.S. Open. Live coverage of Day 1 from New York begins 1 Eastern Time on ESPN.
TrueCar is making car buying simple, fair, and fun. If you're ready to buy, just download the TrueCar app and see what others paid for the same car you're looking for. TrueCar users see average savings of over $3,000 off MSRP. Download that TrueCar app today.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
What you gonna do? You wanna get down? Tell me. What you gonna do? Do you wanna get down? What you gonna do? You wanna get down?
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. I know you want to get down. That's why you're here getting down with us on the Sports Fix Radio Network. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're getting close to hour number 2 here. J-Rocc with you and getting ready to be joined by Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland and the Cleveland Fan. My man Dan with us on Mondays and Wednesdays. We've got a lot to get into. Picking up where we left off, thanks to all of you that called in the first segment. Several of you didn't get through. I'll open up the phone lines again later on in the show here after Dan does his thing with us here, and we'll give you another chance. When the phones are open, it's 216-539-7535. 539-7535, the number to call. Of course, you can always leave your take right now on the hotline, and I'll play it as we did with the mayor's call earlier as well. Or you can hit us up on social media, facebook.com/thesportsfix, Twitter, tweet with us, baby, at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@aol.com, facebook.com/The Sports Fix, Twitter at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@aol.com. Hey, by the way, I'll talk to you guys next segment as well about fantasy football, as we've got 1 week to go before our draft and our league kicks off, and there is one slot, buddy, to enter that. It's free, and I'll tell you all about that next segment. But coming up right now, let's wait no more. My man Dan Wismar going to join us here from Everybody Hates Cleveland and the Cleveland Fan. Dan, my man, how you doing, baby?
I'm doing great, J-Rocc. Good to be with you. Big weekend here. We got all kinds of things to talk about today, don't we?
I know. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm like, all right, well, we were going to be talking about some Tribe here anyway, because they kind of got cooking a little bit, and then boom, this whole Mark Shapiro thing bubbled over, and of course, we'll talk more. We got Browns to get into, Buckeyes, all of that, but we were talking Tribe, so let's kind of stay there. Couple of things, and I don't know how much of the show you've heard, but in the last segment, I kind of alluded to a few of the conversations you and I had last week anyway, because both of the things that we talked about here kind of come into fruition today, although a little differently. Suspicions, we both talked about with the perhaps sale of the Indians, and now comes out that they are indeed seeking some minority investors, which it just verifies to me that at least we're not that clueless. I mean, I could see the writing on the wall that they struck me as a team that was looking to entice some people into spending some money. But the Mark Shapiro thing as well, we talked about it when the first rumors came out, and now it comes out I agree with the mayor. He can't get across the border fast enough, my friend. But it'll be interesting over the next few years to see what he does with a completely night and day, stark difference in the type of organization that he's going to work for. But what do you think about Shapiro heading up to Toronto?
Well, I think congratulations are in order, first of all. And in this day and age, you don't expect anybody to be with your organization longer than 5 years. I'm in the employment business, and we always advise clients that it's crazy to even project more than about 5 years down the line, because that's yesteryear when people started with a company out of college and worked for them for the rest of their career. So 25 years, a long time, especially in this day and age, when that kind of thing is almost unheard of. So congratulations to him, and like you say, that he's going to an organization that is a free spending group, and he won't have the handcuffs on that he had here. So, but the bottom line, more importantly, is about where we are going forward. I think, Jerry, Dolan's indicated that he has no intention of selling the team. That, of course, is disappointing to many of us. And really, I'm unimpressed by the idea that he's looking for a minority investor. First of all, investors, when they invest their millions or tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, expect a return. And one of the things that we haven't heard associated with this Cleveland Indians franchise is the word profit or profitable. This is not a profitable franchise. I've got to believe that this franchise loses money every year, attendance being what it is. And I don't know that for a fact, and I don't know if the books are open to even see. But when Dolan tells me he's looking for minority investors, you might as well just translate that to be cash infusion.
Thank you. Somebody else's money to spend. That's the way I interpret
Someone else's money.
Yes.
Someone else's money to spend. That's right.
Yes.
And I have no intention. So it's not a surprise that there's not a line of people with their checkbooks out standing outside Paul Dolan's office right now. How could there be? There's no return. This is not a profitable enterprise. But, so you can have a stock certificate to frame and put on your office wall.
Well, you know what,
we're willing to take a couple $100 million from you.
Real quick,
like I said, no surprise. There's no line.
Let me just jump in there before you move to a different part. In wrestling, we have a term for a guy like that. He's called a money mark. What it is it's when you're looking to do some big things, but you don't want to spend your own money to do it. You go and you find a guy who is happy just to be there. He's happy to say he's a part of the show. He gets to go tell his buddies, hey, man, I'm a wrestling promoter, and I got this whole company. And meanwhile, he's just there to sign the checks, and he has, obviously, you're just finding a way to use somebody else's money. And to me, all due respect, that's exactly what it feels like the Indians are looking for. They're like, you know what? We want to spend somebody else's money here. So maybe there's a rich guy. And you know what, though? There's no shortage, I don't think, Dan, of those people. Now, whether they're interested in the Indians, I don't know. But there's no shortage of rich people who just want a novelty and just to say, hey, I own a piece of the Cleveland Indians. Hey, come check out my baseball team. So they may very well find somebody. But you're right. The Indians are a tougher sell than, hey, come join the New York Yankees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, and that's gets down to that profitability factor.
Yep.
And there may be a ton of people out there that have $1 million or $2 or $5 or 10 that would love to have their ego stroked by saying that they're a minority shareholder in the Cleveland Indians. That list gets a lot shorter when you're talking about $100 and $200 million.
What did Maletti have? Nick Maletti had what, 55 co-owners of the Indians at one point in time in the 80s when he owned that team, didn't he? Was it 55 different owners, I believe, were part of his group?
Yeah, you're right, and those are the people that have that are on the ego trip that have a little bit of money and want to be able to say they're a part owner, or maybe have a luxury box, or be at least have a seat in a luxury box from time to time.
That's what people.
Yeah, to me, it's the other thing is that Dolan's already said that he's not planning to replace Shapiro.
No,
that he will assume the duties that Shapiro was doing. So that can't be a good thing. Take a guy with ownership interest but really no baseball credentials, and put him in charge of doing the guy that was your top baseball man, take his responsibilities over. That does not bode well either, and does not inspire confidence.
No, we'll go there in just a second, because you and I, when we were kind of just throwing this out last week, one of the things I talked about was the reason I liked it, because I kind of liked a lot of the things that Shapiro did. One of the reasons that I liked it was bringing in a fresh opinion, a fresh mind, a fresh train of thought, and now you're not getting that benefit of it. It's just going to be the business as usual minus one guy. But real quick, just to go and blast from the past, mention Nick Maletti there. I know you've heard tons of stories about him. I was just something I read over the weekend. It was just about Cleveland sports. I was reading some different stories, and there was tons of quotes on him. And it's funny that we brought this topic up. It was about how he was a master at doing exactly what we're talking about. He somehow found ways of owning all of these big franchises, these big things, these big businesses, and spending none of his own money to do it. He would be like, hey, I got a chance to buy the Indians, and I've got $5,000. Who's got the other $10 million? And he would find 55 people to add up to $10 million or whatever, and he would end up owning it, calling all the shots and running the show, and have all of these guys paying for it. And he, at the end of, like Bruce said, never had a dime, never lost a dime of his own money, ended up being an owner of practically every franchise that came through Cleveland during that time period, but did it all with other people's money.
That's right. And the other guy that comes to mind, of course, is Art Modell, sort of a reputation as a carpetbagger when he came to Cleveland with $3 million of borrowed money, and that's million with an M, and bought the Cleveland Browns. And, that was back in 1962 or 1 or whatever it was, and in an entirely different era when you could buy an NFL team for $3 million borrowed or otherwise.
Now you can't get a backup kicker. You can't get a backup kicker for $3 million now, brother, let alone the whole team,
Exactly right. Well, back to the Indians, though, they tantalized us. It's not easy being an Indians fan, Jerry. You and I both know that. They're playing like the team we thought we were going to see all year. Who knew we'd have to wait till the last week of August to see it? But, this is the team we thought we'd be seeing. Of course, we didn't anticipate. No one knew when Francisco Lindor would get up here this year, and all the people that said at the beginning, and I'm going to drop Al Chimichella's name as one of them, who said this guy's ready in April. Don't wait till July. Seems like they were right. He is ready. He was ready. He's a big part of the reason that they're a hot team right now. But it's crazy how they're giving us this tantalizing look at what might have been here as we come into the last 30 some games of the season.
And you know what? Let's go there, Dan, because I was going to do that anyway. I was kicking that around at the beginning because here we were, and look, I will hang on to every last out this season. I do it every year. Last year, I was fighting upstream with the whole Team of Destiny thing. If these guys give me a spark, I'll take it and run with it, and they've done that here this weekend. But where do we run? Because you and I were just talking last week that we were going to keep an eye on the Tribe and watch some of these young guys, but here come the Buckeyes, here come the Browns, here come the Cavs. Things keep moving, and then look at what they're doing again. We go, well, yeah, let me see them win, 8 out of 10, 10 out of 12 a couple of times, and then, well, let me see them sweep. And that was famous last words on Friday. I said, yeah, let me see him sweep the Angels, and then maybe on Monday I'll talk about this a little bit. And sure enough, doggone it, they went out and swept the Angels over the weekend. But now you're a little buzzsaw. Now you're going to run into a bigger one here. Let's see what happens when you play with the big dogs. Because here's Toronto. They've won 22 games in the month of August, and I don't think the Indians won 22 games until July. So it took a while for them to get going this season. My point is we'll find out real quick. Hey, these guys mess around and sweep Toronto. All of a sudden now we've got something very interesting to talk about. But here they go again. 700. Bruce nailed it. 700 ball, second half of the season, now third year in a row.
Right, and 600 in the month of August. I guess I saw
you know
18
what I'm
and
saying.
12,
Yeah, 600.
18 and 12 the other day, but it's crazy to think that you're 5 games out of the wild card. Now, 5 games to overcome in a month is an awful lot. Lots of teams to climb over. But just the fact that they've got you here, I don't know whether to be happy or angry. Angry that they had this in them and we never saw it for 5 months. Or happy that we're finally seeing it now and maybe at least a glimpse at the future. But I'm not optimistic about overcoming a 5-game deficit in the wild card race with only a month to play in the season. Stranger things have happened, obviously, and 2 years ago it was strange, but it got them there.
And it's something you just said there when you said they've had this in them all along. I question, did they though? Because it's a different composition. The guys that are, obviously the Lindor thing, that's one that people are going to second and triple guess till the end of time because the ones that wanted him here were, like you said, were standing at the rooftops and saying, why waste the first 2 months of the season? And when you look at how he got going, and presumably if he can finish out the season the way he's played, he's red hot now. That would show you that those people were right and that perhaps cost the Indians the first couple of months there of development with him. But look around. This is not exactly the 1 through 9 that you thought was going to get you to the playoffs at the beginning of the season.
No doubt. And I don't mean to even imply that the shortstop position alone was the reason that the Indians were played crappy baseball for the first 5 months of the season, because we were watching it. We know better. We know that this was not a good defensive team. We know it was one of the worst base running teams we've seen in modern times. Fundamentally, it was just not there. They lacked the spark. Francona has admitted as much, that they just didn't have that team feel, that chemistry, however you want to define that elusive, quantity. It just wasn't there. So, not to say that Lindor is the end all be all, but he sure has given them a spark on the field, and he plays with emotion, he plays with a smile, and it's infectious. He does the little things, whether it's sack bunts, sack flies, moving a runner, making a defensive play. He's a big part of the first 5 months, but it's been an extremely frustrating season for all of us, you, me, and Bruce, and everybody else, watching this team struggle. And now we're getting a taste of what it could have been, and maybe, knock on wood, what it might be looking forward. I've heard people say, Jerry, and I know you heard the same, that you almost hate to see a big late season push because it'll give the front office the excuse to not do anything again. I'm not sure I'd buy that, but I sure do understand why fans might think that way, and how there might be that level of cynicism in the fan base, broadly speaking. I don't think that the Indians want to fail as an organization, and I don't think they're looking for an excuse to be inactive in the next off season. But like I said, I can understand why that's the view of a significant part of the fan base.
Well, for sure. And I mean, it took me a minute to think about that when Mike and I had talked about it several different times. And it does, though, because here you go again. Are you looking at the same thing where because here, okay, we're throwing out Lindor and you got Urshela, some of the young guys, but look, Chisenhall, the Indians getting things going, getting on a run here the last 10 games or so. Lonnie Chisenhall got himself going offensively. There's a guy who gave you nothing all season long to the point that you were ready to just give him away and move him out of the way. That was a guy that was supposed to be a part of all this. I mean, there's a lot of people that can take the blame for not stepping up offensively. I don't know. I mean, and so that's why coming out of the season, it's so tricky because it'll be so easy for the Indians to do that again, especially if they have a nice run here, win 20 out of 30 to finish this thing off, finish a couple games back or whatnot. It would be so easy to say, well, look at what happened after we got rid of a Swisher, after we got rid of Bourne, after we cleared Moss and those guys out of the way, after we brought up the young guys, after this, that, and the other thing. Look, Lonnie Chisenhall got going. All these things that happened in the second half, it'll be so easy for them to sell that once again. And I don't want them to tank because, good Lord, watching bad baseball is not the alternative solution at all. But I just see this organization that continually repeats itself over and over again, doing the same thing, going back to Shapiro. And the fact that the first thing the Indians did was said, hey, we're not making any changes. It's going to be business as usual. As a matter of fact, we're not even going to fill his job. I'm just going to take over his job. That speaks to me of that group think that I just wish somebody, and I'm not just talking about on the field. You and I talk about the ticket sales all the time. I'm talking from the ticket department to the promotions department to the front office to the baseball people. I just feel like the Indians need somebody, even if I know of companies that have literally employed people whose entire job is to be contrary to the group think. Your whole job is to tell me the opposite of what everybody else is saying, just so that there's somebody there presenting different arguments. And sometimes it feels like the Indians have gotten so inducted with that group think, which is a good thing for the most part. You do want everybody on the same page, but it starts to get cult-like. It starts to get where you don't have anybody with an ulterior point of thinking, and that's scary. And that's what I was hoping would get injected here in this organization. It just feels like what we use the word all the time, whether it's just disconnect with the fans, with the way other people see it. And this speaks to that same disconnect of we're just going to keep it business as usual, because I don't believe at the end of the day that the Dolans are that unhappy with the business as usual for the Indians. Of course, they want to make more money. This is why I argue that they don't lose money. And I know nobody can ever prove that, but I will never buy that they lose money. I think that baseball revenue shares to the point that none of these guys are actually losing. They may lose other people's money, but they're sure not losing their own money. And I believe that the lack of accountability in the Indians is because the Dolans are not that unhappy at the end of the day. The Indians do just well enough for the Dolans to do it again next year. I just feel that way from the top down, and I wish somebody different had been injected into this here, where you could go, hey, whether it's a young guy, that young whippersnapper that just goes, hey, how come we don't use Instagram more? Or how come we're not on this new social platform? Or how come we're not hitting these young fans in this demographic? You know what I mean?
Well, sure, and I think that we've all known and noticed over the years that one of the Indians' problems is that public perception, that the Dolans are cheap perception. You're probably right that if this franchise was, more profitable, the reason the franchise doesn't make money, or maybe they're making money with an $85 million payroll. You got to believe that their payroll is adjusted so that they don't lose buckets of money, even if they're not making buckets of money. So it finds its equilibrium right at that 85 million number. And like you say, maybe that allows the Dolans to make a little bit of profit each year when you add up everything else from concessions and parking and everything else. That they are making a dime or two. I don't think that's enough to attract outside investors to fork over tens or hundreds of millions. But I also take on the other side of it. I think that fans sometimes, that are looking for a front office house cleaning, or be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. We'll see what happens now. I think that probably it's going to be business as usual, and it certainly looks like it's going to be business as usual. But clearing out, a president, a general manager, a field manager, or whoever else, you better have an alternative in mind. It's like changing coaches with the Browns,
Yes.
Sure, it might feel good to fire the guys not getting the job done, but you better have somebody better in the wings or willing to say yes to the job if you're going to have the transition be a success. So I believe that Shapiro and Antonetti have been competent, if barely competent, at their jobs. I think the state of the franchise is probably better, with the exception of attendance, talking about talent and farm system and potential in young players, better than it was, say, 10 years ago. I'm not so sure it was better than it was, when Mark Shapiro started with this team back when in the 90s heyday. But, a word of caution is important that, you're going to make a big change, you're going to make a splash, you better have a better alternative at the ready.
And I absolutely agree with that. I never have been one for the change for the sake of change kind of guy, and I'm with you there too. There are some things to be said for stability. My thing is not even bringing in somebody radical. If I was, and I would do this if I ran any big business, but man, if I ran the Indians, I'm telling you, whatever my department was, this is just my belief in always getting different opinions, man. I'd have weekly meetings with just different people in different departments. I'm big on seeking out the opinions of the people that actually do what we do and know what they're talking about. I just think that in sports and corporations, it becomes so easy for these guys to insulate themselves, and you just start to all speak one language, and that is a good thing in certain aspects. But to me, the tone starts to become mute after a while, and I just think the ticket sales is one that points out to me a lot. Like if I ran, well, of course, if you and I ran that department, we'd clear the whole damn thing out. But if I ran that department, I would literally have meetings every week. Just have a meeting with 6 or 8 or 10 of the various people, younger people that work in the department, and just go, hey, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Not necessarily going to listen to anything you're saying. I'm just going to sit here and write them down and just talk to me and then walk out of there. Hey, maybe you get 100 suggestions and only use 2 of them, but you're constantly getting a flow of ideas and of fresh opinions, because to me, that's you cut yourself off. And I feel like the Indians have been in that same groupthink for so long. I don't know. Anyways, we'll see what happens with it, but you have brought up there where this can get crazy is we don't know what the backside of this will still be yet in the off season. What happens with the fallout? Do other people leave? Does Terry Francona, does this reverberate on him? I mean, there's going to be a backside of this too, and we'll have to see, because as you said, it could very quickly turn into a clean sweep, as we mentioned before, and then now it may have been, where do the Indians go now?
Well, I think Francona threw a little cold water on that idea that he would exercise his opt-out provision. He doesn't plan on doing that.
I saw
that. I think he tried to make the distinction between Shapiro getting fired, and we talked about that last week too.
Yes.
That if it was a matter of a house cleaning where Shapiro was shown the door and the doorknob hit him in the butt on the way out or something, then maybe Francona would be inclined to opt out. But I don't think he wants to go anywhere. I said last week I thought this would be his last manager's job, and I think if he hasn't said so in as many words, he's implied that. So I don't think that that's an issue. I think he still wants to be here and wants to see this thing through and see some success here.
I agree with you there, and I'm glad you brought that up. I like Terry Francona, and I do not want him to be a casualty in whatever happens here with the Indians. So, hey, man, big one here with the Blue Jays. I mean, I guess if you want to believe that the Indians have got something cooking and they're for real, here's as good a test as you're going to have for that right here, because Toronto, as we mentioned, they're red hot. They're 21 games over, or 20 games or so over 500. They're on a roll this month. I mean, we'll find out real quick. And by the way, backside of those things that don't matter until they matter, week and a half ago it was, shut Carrasco down, shut them all down, shut Anderson down. No reason for these guys to get hurt, man. Let's just shut them down for the rest of the season. I'm just saying, you're going to wish you had Carlos Carrasco back if the Indians do make a run out of this thing. So it's just funny how, short-sighted 2 weeks later, the whole thing changes, because I didn't get one person who sent me an opinion other than shut Carrasco down for the rest of the season. We don't need him anymore. Let's not let him get hurt. But boy, if we're starting, Josh Tomlin in the last game of the season with the playoffs on the line, you're going to wish Carlos Carrasco had not been shut down for the season. Not saying that he will be, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're right. And we've said all year, this or that is the potential of this team, and we think they could still get hot. And all along, as May, June, July, and August kind of rolled by us, we said, well, if we're going to get enthusiastic about it, they're going to have to give us a reason to. They're going to have to win, 8 out of 10, or they're going to have to, do something to show us that they've got really that potential. Well, now they've shown us that, and we're staring September 1st in the eye here, and it may be too late, but. Like I said, stranger things have happened. We hang in there. I kind of wrote this season off a good month ago as being, okay, I'm going to ride it out. I watch them every game. I watched them all weekend. I'm going to continue to watch them and go to the games. I've got a couple more games left this year, but, it could get interesting, but you're right. This is a huge week. Any other team might be saying, well, we just finished a really strong, a 5-game short 5-0 road trip and our homestand rather. Now we're going out on the road, but this is a team that doesn't mind playing on the road, and we'll see how they do with all those big bats up in Toronto and a very, very hot team. So it's a big week for the Indians, but at least we've got a big week in September, and that's something to say.
Absolutely. We didn't see that one coming perhaps a few weeks back, but they got it rolling. Hey, this will be a good one, too. Salazar back on the mound. They say he's down almost 6 pounds after that virus a couple days ago. But on the opposite side, Indians killer. You got David Price going, who not only owns the Indians, 9-1 lifetime against the Tribe with a 2 ERA. He's 2-0 this year with a .4 ERA for those starts that he had with Detroit. But he's pretty impeccable at Rogers Center, too, in his career. Of course, he's only been there for a couple of starts with them, but he's 8-0 there as well. So there's a lot against the Tribe tonight. David Price, the old Tribe killer. This is a big one too, like you said, a 9-game trip here for the Indians, and if they're going to do anything, clearly they come back from this trip here winning 6 or 7 out of 9. Anything less than that, and you're just hoping to finish 500 for the season. Now you come out.
Yeah, that's right. You go 6-3, you're at 500.
Right.
When you come home for what I think is the longest homestand of the season.
Yep.
And then as we pointed out all year, it's going to be a Central Division month of September here. You're playing all your rivals. And speaking of Central Division rivals, I don't know about you, but I get a little bit of perverse satisfaction out of seeing the Detroit Tigers in last place and really mailing it in from this point over the last couple of weeks. I mean, they have just kind of folded the tent up there.
Agreed.
And if the Indians are going to have a lackluster season, it sure does my heart good to see the Tigers looking up at the Indians at this point of the season, and really it just seems like they've bagged it and are mailing them in from here on out. They obviously unloaded some people, and I at the start of the season we wondered, we thought that the Tigers pitching, they had lost too much pitching and they were getting too old. I said a couple of weeks ago, the people that thought that the Royals and the Tigers were going to be worse this year were half right.
Yeah.
The Royals are better, but the Tigers did what we thought they might do, and they lost a Porcello and a Scherzer and Smiley and had Verlander on the DL. Their pitching just didn't hold up, and they're having a one of those character building seasons that after a nice run, but a run that never got them to the mountaintop.
And you know what? Speaking of that, you talk about, Shapiro going somewhere with money, and I still believe in baseball that money does help you smooth the path to some success, but you still have to be able to evaluate talent. But just look at the three divisions there. Just look across the American League. Look at the bottom of them. You got the Boston Red Sox. You got the Detroit Tigers. The Angels, who just came out of they're in a complete free fall. Both of the Red Sox and the Tigers are 1-9 in their last 10. The Angels 2-8, but they have just free fallen from having a pretty commanding spot up in the wild card chase to now they're in that pack of teams just ahead of the Indians trying to get back into it, but they're completely free falling. Add up the payroll of those three teams, the Angels, the Tigers, and the Red Sox, it's probably $1 billion or close to it,
Right, and it looked for a while like the Yankees were in a tailspin and they were going to, fold up and get out. They've made a little bit of a comeback now, but boy, if you could have the Red Sox and the Yankees both out of it, and the Angels and the Tigers, it would really be a changing of the guard. And
yes.
Speaking of changing of the guard, all you have to do is look at the National League with the Mets, Pirates, and Cubs, three of the most downtrodden franchises in baseball, all looking like they're going to be in the playoffs along with the Dodgers and the Cards. Obviously Dodgers or Giants and Cardinals in that playoff. That's going to be a very, very compelling October for the National League with some upstart teams there. They've been fun to watch, and I think right now the National League playoffs is a little bit more compelling than the American League ones. But American League too, you've got some new blood there, certainly with the Royals, who are still a new item, and the Blue Jays looking like they're going to make it. So it's going to be a great October for baseball.
Oh, I agree with you. And some of some surprises too. I mean, you mentioned those teams there, and those Central teams in the National League are a lot of fun to watch. Texas, a lot of people, look past them, they bounce back. Meanwhile, Seattle, they're kind of like the Indians. A lot of people had them, the same people that were looking at the Tribes had. I think ESPN may have had Seattle going to the World Series, but that's another one that has definitely disappointed. Of course, their general manager got the axe as part of that there, and all of that. But yeah, it's very interesting looking around to see that, as you said, those Central teams in the National League, just everywhere else. Like the Dodgers and the Giants have both kind of cooled off. Neither one really pulling away much, as they're a couple games difference there. But man, the Pirates, the Cubs, and even the Cards, though they have a cushion there in the division, all three of those teams red hot. They've all won 7 of their last 10 or so, and they're all keeping pace with each other there. The Pirates, I'll tell you, I wish they were the Punxsutawney Pirates. I wish they were the Harrisburg Pirates. I wish they were anything but Pittsburgh, because I have an aversion to that city in general. But damn, the Pirates are a fun team to watch. I caught a game of theirs the other day, and they got guys just racing around the bases and just playing some ball, and the fans are having so much fun there. Like I said, I wish they were the Harrisburg Pirates, man.
Yeah, well, what really is the shame is that the Pirates and Cubs both have better records than either the Dodgers or the Mets, the division leaders, and they're going to be one game and out. It almost looks like a certainty now that those are going to be the two wild card teams, unless something really drastic happens. And it's a shame that teams are going to have maybe 90-some wins are going to be playing a one game and out wild card game against each other, and one of them isn't going to proceed.
I mean, that's pretty close to a lock. Let's see. The Cubs are 5 games up on the Giants, it looks like, and like 8 games up on Washington. Those are the 2 nearest competitors for the wild card there in the National League. So barring a collapse, you're absolutely right. You know what? I don't know all the stats. I wonder offhand if that would be the first time that if they ended with the same percentages that they have now. I wonder if that would be the first time that both wild card teams would have more wins than 2 of the 3 division winners do.
Yeah, that's interesting to find that out. I can't remember it happening, but I'm not terribly good at remembering those kinds of numbers from years ago. But yeah, it's going to be great, and the Cubs and Pirates both are such fun teams to watch, and the Mets too. They've had a remarkable run here of late. Kind of people expecting for them to fold the tent, and they just have. Of course, there's nobody else in the East that's doing much at all. I don't think there's another plus 500 team in the East, but I guess the Nationals now have crawled back over 500, but that would be it over there.
Yeah, I think they are. Let's see. Yeah, they're 3 games over 500, but yeah, still 8 games back there in the wild card. Comfortable lead for the Pirates and the Cubs. Meanwhile, the Tribe, as I said, man, as much as you can get excited, the thing that should cool you off is when this winning streak started, they were 5 games out of the wild card, and they've won 5 games in a row, and they're still 5 games out of the wild card. That's unfortunately when you cause your own hole, you know.
That's why it's tough to get all worked up about this situation, because you've only got 30-some games, what is it, 35, 34 left in the season, and tough to make 5 games, especially when you've got to climb over multiple teams to do it. So,
right, Minnesota.
Like you said, big week. We'll take it on the road against the Jays, and we'll see what happens. And come back 6-3. You're at 500. Hopefully, you get a little bit of help from people like the Twins and Angels that are maybe going to drop back a little bit towards you. So, anything can happen. So we'll pay attention. That's for sure. I will.
Yeah, Minnesota's matching the Tribe step for step. They've won 8 of their last 10 as well. And I mentioned Texas. They exploded back into the wild card. They've won 7 of 10, 8 of 11 here to get themselves back up. Actually, Texas, I didn't even realize this. If it ended now, they are the second wild card. They've now overtaken L.A. and Minnesota there in that second spot thanks to the Indians sweep. So how about that? If the season ended today, Texas would actually have that second wild card spot. Who saw that coming earlier in the season?
Yeah, that's true. They were counted out, I think, by a lot of people, including me. But, yeah,
absolutely.
Good.
Dan, my man, let's talk some football. Let's shift gears a little bit. Welcome in, by the way, those of you guys tuning into the Sports Fix here as we roll on in hour 2. J-Rocc, Dan Wismar, we've been talking a lot of Tribe, and we'll pick back up on this later on in the week. But let's talk some football. Since you and I talked last, dress rehearsal game in the books and a lot of different places to go. Before we talk any football X's and O's, I'm going to start with Johnny Manziel. I mentioned to you that I wasn't trying to be the bearer of bad tidings or whatever, but I had a feeling that this was going to go from bad to worse physically with Johnny Manziel. I don't know what you've heard, but I've talked to a couple of people, and I'm hearing that there's second and third tests being done and opinions being done, and it is a very real possibility that Johnny Manziel may end up needing surgery on his elbow, which would preclude him doing anything more for the significant part of this season anyways. And the Browns are being really quiet about this and low-key and saying all the right things. But I'm telling you, Dan, everything swirling around this tells me that a few weeks from now, the Browns are going to go, well, turns out that it was more serious than we thought, so we just wanted to get it cleaned up so that he can get ready for next season.
Well, listening to the first half hour of your show today, Jerry, was the first I'd heard of it. So, it is new to me. I was calling last week for the Browns to trade for Zach Mettenberger, sign somebody. I heard you say there's maybe a fire sale price on RG3 this week. Here we'll see how that plays out. But with or without an elbow surgery for Johnny Football, it's time for the Browns, I think, to try to add some depth at the quarterback position, no matter what happens. I think we agreed on that even before this news, and makes it even more urgent after this news. I don't want, Thad Lewis's, performance Saturday night notwithstanding. It wasn't anything to write home about. So, yeah, you need to add somebody at that position. They've added Pat Devlin. I don't even know what Pat Devlin is, really. Time to look elsewhere. Time to be combing the waiver wire and seeing who other teams are cutting loose. So
I'll tell you right now what I've heard about Johnny Manziel is that right now it's a wait and see deal. 2 weeks they're gonna. But what I'm being led to believe is that it's a situation that if there is not improvement, then this will be a situation that requires an elbow surgery because they're going to need to get in there. And I got to be honest, when he went down and they said, oh, it's no big deal, he's going to take a couple of days off and came back, and we talked about this last week, and then you come back and you've got it again and it recurs, that's a bad sign, especially when you're at that age. And now all these reports flying that apparently he's had a bad elbow for years and people didn't know about it. And the Browns, some people say they didn't know about it. Then Mike Pettin says, it was no big deal. It was just normal stuff. I've got to be honest, I disagree with that, and I think that that's totally telling people what they want to hear or what you want to hear to calm the situation down, because not many 22-year-old quarterbacks have faced a lifetime of elbow pain in situations before. I disagree with that completely. These guys have rubber arms that bounce back like glue until they break, and then they're toast. But there was
I thought at the time.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's been no talk leading into this that there was problems before. Never before this season had anybody on the Browns mentioned one single problem in Johnny Manziel's life when it came to his elbow. Now, it's a problem he's been dealing with since high school, and I just think that's disingenuous. I believe there's a serious problem, and if there is not a miraculous recovery, his agents are going to have him have surgery to repair that elbow, and it'll be a loss of the season deal, because that's a elbow ligament. As you know, once you start getting in there, who knows what happens to a guy if he needs to have surgery too, because once you start moving things around, elbows and ligaments become very tricky with quarterbacks.
Well, yeah. First of all, everybody who's ever been through a summer camp in the football season knows about a camp arm, okay? Right. Quarterbacks have to make a lot of throws. There's a lot of reps, and I thought at the time it seemed a little bit strange that the club would make a statement about, well, this is something that Johnny's had this sore arm ever since he's been in college. This is something that goes like that. This is supposed to make us feel better that this has been going on with Johnny Manziel ever since he was in college, or maybe even high school.
High school. They said since high school, Dan.
Me. Yeah, that concerns me more, not less. Don't tell me that I should feel better because this is a problem that goes back to his high school days.
No,
that doesn't make me feel better. That makes me more convinced that there's something structurally wrong in that elbow that's going to need to be fixed eventually, because it's never going to go away. So that seemed a little strange at the outset that was one of the talking points to calm people down. It makes you more concerned, not less concerned. So. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, Jerry. Like I said, it's news to me that he might have to have surgery, but all the more reason to be seriously looking for some quarterback talent as you go forward.
I mean, I'm going to go down on record, and if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong, but I believe within 3 weeks, and I think I'm being generous just in case, but I believe within 3 weeks that he is going to reach that point of things. And you know what? My belief is that this is a function of trying to turn him into an NFL quarterback. I firmly do believe. I don't want to hear about what problems he's had since high school. They've already kind of said that the improper arm motion that he uses to throw has put a lot of stress on his arm. I believe that Johnny Manziel can be summed up very simply. I mean, we all know he was an athlete that was able to use his athletic ability at the high school, at the college level to get himself in this position. But at no point was he ever a structured quarterback. He was never he never did drills and all of that. He was a drop and drag, plug and play, go out there and make plays guy, even in college, fly by the seat of the pants. And last year, again, same thing. All that hoo-ha and stuff surrounding him. It was a messed up training camp for him as far as the work. Do you find a coincidence? I don't find any coincidence at all that the first quote-unquote real off-season, real training regimen, real structured, you're going to drop back and throw this many times every day. All the stuff that the Browns did, I think this is the first time that Johnny Manziel was forced for months at a time to plant his feet, to throw the ball, to do things in the way the NFL wants them done. And I think that very quickly is what led to the problems in his elbow, because all of a sudden now you're forcing the arm over and over again to do something different. Even though this is what he should have been doing from the beginning, you're changing what your body's done. And you know what it speaks to? Like you said, it doesn't make me feel better that he had this problem before that it started. What it speaks to is that these are more reasons that you should have avoided the mistake that you made, for the simple fact that you knew you were going to have to do all this and and change him, because I honestly believe that this camp and the way he's been structured, all the dropbacks over and over and over, I think that was what really contributed, because he never had to set his feet. He didn't have somebody correcting his elbow point and the trajectory of his elbow and all of that stuff. And as soon as that happened, one problem after another with the elbow, and here we go.
Yeah, and who knows, Jerry? That's it's interesting, but it is speculation.
Oh yeah,
it
that's
does,
just me.
It does tell me that the fact that he's had this problem ongoing for years. When you're in college, you're not drawing a paycheck, and all the focus is on going out and playing every Saturday. Once you get down to the NFL and there's an investment in you, and a long-term investment, and millions of dollars at stake, teams start looking at the future, and something that might be a problem that wouldn't necessitate surgery or wouldn't call for surgery when you're in college, it might very well call for surgery when you're a pro, when you have the very best orthopedic surgeons looking at you and millions of dollars in payroll riding on you, that you might be looking with more of a concern to the future than to the present, especially when at the present you're the backup. So, who knows? Let's go ahead. Let's get it right. And again, cart before the horse, because right now we're in the category of rumor. Am I right? As opposed to anything that is public.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just putting out there what I know and what I think is going to be the next step up. But I've actually heard from several people that those are the discussions being had right now between the Browns and Johnny Manziel's people, is getting second and third opinions, and I can very quickly see where this thing is going. Again, I hope I'm wrong for the Browns' sake, because then they'll be down one less quarterback. Thaddeus Lewis and Josh McCown is pretty much all you've got at that point, and we'll get into some other options in a minute. But let's talk about that game the other day and what the Browns did. Of course, I have to agree with Bruce like an hour ago. Said, I got two things. First off, it's the preseason. Second off, it's the Buccaneers. And I agree 100% on all of that, man. But that being said, there are some things that I do like regardless of who they were playing. I cannot tell you how much it thrilled me to no end to see Benjamin return a deal like that, because we have been missing that spark and that electricity in the special teams game. And I saw special teams all around being strong for the Browns the other day. There were guys racing down the field on the kick returns and punt returns. There was good coverage. There was good guys were staying in their lanes and were not getting holes blown open on the returns. I thought that the special teams was very impressive on both aspects from the Browns the other day.
No doubt. In fact, I was a little bit hesitant coming into this game, because I had seen Tampa Bay really dismantling the Bengals on Monday previous, and thought, maybe Tampa Bay, second year, Lovie Smith, he's got some things going on. He's got the number one quarterback in the country coming in as a rookie. Maybe they're putting things together there, because they really did look good taking the Bengals apart. Just goes to show you can never put too much stock in any preseason game, no matter what the outcome is. Certainly one of the things that's been a pleasant surprise to me so far this summer has been the place kicking situation. I expected place kicking disaster, and we still may see place kicking disaster come the regular season. But they, both kids have looked good, and they've made their kicks. I don't remember having missed a kick. Maybe they've missed one field goal attempt all through the exhibition season so far. So that's been good. And Benjamin has looked good. He was a guy we were kind of writing off, and clearly it looks like he's got the team made. As much as anything, though, Jerry, I was impressed with first of all, I was impressed with the defense in general.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, this is not a good offense, and it's not a good offensive line. Certainly, they proved that. 6 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, half a dozen hurries, pickoff. They really did work over that Tampa Bay offensive line. But still, NFL starters, you've shown that you're going to be able to do that. I was happy with the pass rush situation. Obviously, Desmond Bryant made a big splash for himself.
Beast. Oh,
and Danny Shelton is the real deal. I don't think there's any disputing it now. I'm just hoping the kid stays healthy because he changes everything in there. I don't know if you saw the one play that he made at the sideline where there was a couple people involved in the tackle, but Shelton came in to finish it off and land on top of the guy right at the sideline, and they replayed it to show basically this guy's not just somebody that can plug you up in the middle, but a guy that's going to be able to have the speed to make plays sideline to sideline for you. I can't tell you how delighted I am with Danny Shelton, man. And really, the draft choices in general, with the exception maybe of Taylor Maley, Vince Maley, Taylor Maley, I can never remember his name.
Vince. Yeah.
I've been calling him Taylor Maley for some reason. He hasn't shown me anything, but beyond that, the draft choices from Xavier Cooper to Shelton, maybe a little bit less so with Orchard. He didn't play the other night. I don't know what his injury situation is, but Games and Pollard and Malcolm Johnson's in there looking like he knows what he's doing. They haven't utilized him a lot, like what limited you've seen from Duke Johnson, and it's a shame about his concussion. But in fact, before I forget, I just wanted to mention I don't know if this was an original line from Bruce, but I got to tip my hat to Bruce for the line about speculating about hiring Ray Rice because Duke Johnson's concussion, going from a concussion to trading a concussion for a headache. I thought was very creative and clever on Bruce's part this morning in the morning, which I wanted to just say tip my hat for that line.
By the way, if we're taking a 30-something-year-old washed-up running back, I'll take Fred Jackson over Ray Rice. I'm just saying.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I saw that this morning, Jerry, and thought the same exact thing. I'm glad to take Fred Jackson over Ray Rice any day. So, I hope that doesn't come to that, and I hope that Duke Johnson is able to make the New York Jets opener. That's all we're really hoping for at this point. Is that week and a half from now he'll be good to go.
Yeah, because while we're talking about this, one thing that I've noticed, and it's really starting to, and not starting, it's always irritated me. We saw it last year, and I know the media tries to drive the train and all that stuff. We saw Johnny Fever and all the crap, and watching how the media tries to influence the way a football team is run is amazing, because the running back question, I watch the media continue. It's the local Cleveland cats here. Continue to force the name Ray Rice onto Mike Pettin, and he keeps answering it in the most inane way possible. Well, if we need a running back, I mean, we'll look at the names that are on the list, and that's a name that's on the list, and they keep going back to him and going back to him. It's like, you know what? I'm convinced that that is the objective now. Since we can't have Johnny Mania, we've got to have some non-football related circus. So let's get Ray Rice into Cleveland so then all that media can start writing their articles about Ray Rice and telling their stories about that and how the Browns went and did this and that. To me, it's like, man, you guys are trying to you want Ray Rice to come and join this team because it's a better story than some other person or just a football story. But they keep forcing that name into Mike Pettin's mouth, and you wonder why he just talks in circles, because he does, most definitely. Mike Pettin, as much as I believe he's an honest cat, he is quickly learning how to talk in circles with the media, because now all he does is just lay it out there like, yeah, well, you could assume that if you want, and I could see what would lead you to believe that way, but we've still got to watch how it plays out on the field. And you're like, what exactly did you just say? You found a really good way of saying nothing and making it sound like you answered my question, which is what you've got to do when the media is trying to tell their own story with your words, you know?
Yeah, that's right. And he's done the same thing with the idiotic question about naming a starting quarterback. He how many ways do I have to tell you that Josh McCown's my starting quarterback? And right. He basically said, I think I've said he's the starter without saying he's the starter. Haven't I? why is this question being repeatedly asked of me? He doesn't want to do it, and he basically has said, when the NFL says I have to name a starter, I'll name a starter. But it's as obvious as the nose on your face who my starter is. I've told you without telling you. So, yeah, you're right. He's learning that you have to resort to coach speak sometimes because the media, frankly, is I don't know. I think they're idiots. They're like you say, trying to create a narrative, trying to create a story where there isn't one. Johnny Manziel actually drove the team for a touchdown in his last game. So is he the starter? When's he going to be the starter? Is he the starter yet? Come on, coach. Baiting him that way, and it really is silly, and it's good of Pettin to point out how silly it is.
Absolutely. All right, man. You named so many things that I wanted to talk about during this game. So let's see. Let's start on the defensive side, because you brought up the defense, and I mean, obviously you're playing Tampa, and you've got to keep that in mind, as you mentioned, that just awful offensive line that they've got there. I agree that the Browns' defense has got more teeth than it did last year, but they don't have that much teeth. They were like a great white the other day against Tampa. Every play, they're just bum rushing. The one play they dialed up, I swear, I think they blitzed 9 guys. Honestly, I look around, everybody's rushing the quarterback. I said, man, but they for real, they got after him, and it was, man, Des Bryant, he was unreal. How about, you brought up Shelton at one play. There was another play where Shelton didn't make the tackle, but he drove his offensive lineman back into the running back, like just pushed him back and affected the play that way. Man, these guys up front, all the way through, the depth, every line of them coming through. They are a much more aggressive up front. They're doing a better job. And again, this is preseason, stopping the run, being able to contain the running game a lot better. And all of these things qualify with it being the preseason. I hate having to say that over and over again, because I feel like I get too up about something and go, well, it doesn't really matter. In 2 weeks, we'll see what it really counts. But I think we saw too, we talked about this before, it's hard to judge the backside of the defense until the front side is getting some pressure, and vice versa until the backside is healthy. But I think we saw that this defense can work together and be very good when they get rolling if they keep everybody healthy, because the front is strong, and that's given the quarterback less time, which means your defensive backs now only have to cover perhaps for 2 or 3 or 4 seconds instead of 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds long, and that's going to make, just by proxy, your defensive backs better than they are.
Yeah, I think that's true. The other thing that I noticed this whole preseason is Carlos Dansby, coming into his second year, really seems to be playing at a very high level. And Chris Kirksey has been showing that he is really going to be improved in his second year. If Robertson, who I thought played much better last year, if he's unable to start because Chris Kirksey has beat him out of a job, that tells me a lot. Dansby and Kirksey on the inside are playing lights out, I think. And the run game, I think Randy Starks has been more of a sort of a quiet contributor toward helping this team be better against the run. Obviously, Danny Shelton is the big factor there. But my concern remains on the outside are Kruger and Mingo and Armani Bryant, and these guys that are outside linebacker positions going to be able to do what they need to do to protect the edge. Scott Solomon, again, showed you the other day that he's going to be somebody to be contended with at outside linebacker. So, Mingo, I think, is going to have a hard time working his way back on the field when he is healthy. Not so sure that's a bad thing. If Solomon and Kruger and to a maybe lesser degree Armani Bryant are playing like they can play out there. But you had to be real impressed with not only Cooper continuing to progress, but Desmond Bryant having such a big game. Starks, the other guys, I think Billy Wynn now looks like he might be on the outside looking in terms of even making this team. Tell me, Jared, because I'm not quite sure what the story is with Hughes this preseason. Has he played at all? Is he injured? Do you know the nature of his injury, or what's his story?
You know what? Let me pull up my last injury report there on that one.
Because I just couldn't think of it off the top of my head. I know he's a guy that just signed to a contract, and,
right?
And so you got to figure he's a cinch to make the team, but we haven't seen him. So I just wonder, if you're going to cut a Billy Wynn in favor of a Hughes who you've extended, it'd be nice to see the kid before the season starts.
Absolutely. I'm pulling up the last injury update on him, but as we're throwing these names out, you go to something great, because here we come. Obviously, tomorrow, really the next 20 guys are getting lopped off this roster in the next 5 days. You've got Tuesday cut downs coming up here, and then the big one on Saturday to get yourself down to the final 53-man roster. So.
Well, they did cut a few. They did cut a few this morning, right? They announced, Shane Wynn, and
they cut 4 or 5 guys. They're down to 84. They've got to be down to
Right.
75 on Tuesday. So there's 9 players that have to go today or tomorrow, and then 50 guys that are gone by Saturday. So in this first round of cuts, obviously a lot of people are gonna get a chance to play one more game here, but we're bringing up these names. You brought up Billy Wynn. You've got all this depth up front. Same in the back. Charles Gaines stepping up, making plays. Guys throughout the defense in the linebackers. While Mingo's out, Orchard's playing. Solomon's just locking up a starting spot. Kirksey, Robertson, all these guys still playing. Questions are coming here. Now, obviously, you're not worried this second about Mingo, about, he's a top pick that you're still trying to salvage, but some tough decisions are coming this week for the Browns. Name me a couple of guys that wouldn't surprise you, but maybe would surprise some fans if they're not on this team on Saturday.
Well, I think Maley would be one. Could we see Justin Gilbert get cut? I guess it would be hard to be shocked by that.
Wow. What would you think would be the odds of that? I wasn't expecting that name to come out just because he's a second-year guy. What do you think would be the odds of that?
Boy, maybe with Desir getting hurt, maybe if he's going to be out for a while, that might save Gilbert's job. But Gaines playing well, and Williams, K'Wan Williams, the other Williams who's a starter, and Hayden. I don't know how many corners you're going to keep, but again, that would be a shocker. But you were asking for people that would shock you. At the wide receiver, certainly, I guess Terrell Pryor could get cut if he can't get out on the field this Thursday. That might surprise some people, but I don't know how it could.
Mike Patton said that's not true, though. He said before the game the other day, and I found this funny. Did you notice Solomon Wilcots talked to him and said that he specifically asked about Terrell Pryor, and that Mike Patton said Terrell Pryor could still make this roster without playing a single preseason game.
Even if he doesn't play Thursday. Yeah,
right.
I did see that, and but the proof will be in when the cuts come down, because we thought it was going to be hard for a Travis Benjamin to make this team based on the receivers that they had, and shockers. I don't know. Andrew Hawkins. Could he end up being an odd man out with
no way.
How much they like Taylor Gabriel and Benjamin? I mean, you're going to keep the 3 Smurfs in place along with Bo and Hartline and either a Maley or a Pryor as your 6th guy. Hard to say what their thinking is on that. They're paying Hawkins a bunch of money, but you don't pay him if you cut him in the NFL.
Yeah, but I don't think Hawkins. I think Hawkins is in the clear. I do. I don't think he has anything to worry about. But those are going to be some questions here, because you got to keep your best 53 guys. That's where the Terrell Pryor thing comes in. And I mean, obviously, we haven't seen anything game wise. They've seen what they've seen in practice and stuff. And I think it'd be I'm curious to see if they were to make the decision of having to keep him on the roster without having had him play. But something else, I think it was Terry Pluto that I saw point this out, said it for no other reason than to buy yourself a couple of weeks to evaluate him in the regular season. You've got teams. Look at the Packers. They lost Jordy Nelson, and then I don't know how serious the Cobb injury is, but I saw over the weekend while I was gone that Cobb got a shoulder injury in their last preseason game. And I mean, Jordy Nelson's a big enough hit as it is, gone for the season. But the Packers, there's a team that already now has problems. There's a couple of teams that'll be looking. You got to think. I would think Terrell Pryor plays wide receiver in the NFL this season one way or the other. So for that reason only, you got to think that you'd be better off keeping him here with the Browns, because I do believe that there will be a spot for him if the Browns let him go.
Well, that may be, and he hinted at that the other day. I hope I make this team, but if I don't, I'll move forward and carry on or whatever. Assuming he would try to sign with somebody else and hook up with someone else. The other thing that factors into the wide receiver plan is, after you start counting up the receivers and Bo and Hartline, Hawkins, Gabriel, and Maley and Pryor, and what we're not talking about is Marlon Moore. Pettin came out and in as much as said outright that Marlon Moore is going to make this team, as is Jonathan Batamosi, even if they're not in the rotations from scrimmage because of their work on special teams. Marlon Moore's got to be considered a wide receiver, even if he's just a gunner, and taking up a roster spot that Pettin has virtually guaranteed him already. Same with Batamosi, who's a safety who's been playing corner all summer because they've been so thin at that spot. But that's going to impact your numbers as well if you're guaranteeing those two guys a spot just to play special teams.
And I'll tell you a name, and look, I was excited, thought that maybe this guy, would come and really bring that big body that the Browns offense needs there, but Dwayne Bowe, I know he's been down early, but, and he had some miscommunication deals, dropped a pass the other day. Those are things that happen when you first get on the field, but part of me is very interested to see how this Dwayne Bowe experiment goes over the first portion of the season, because part of me believes that I'm just going to throw this out here. I hope he has a successful season, but I can also see a scenario where Dwayne Bowe does not finish this season as a member of the Cleveland Browns, because I have a very bad feeling based on the limited stuff I've seen and more what I've heard from people that have seen what he's done in practice, that Dwayne Bowe may be on the wrong side of that side that you talk about when you try to get a guy with a little more left in the tank. And I hope I'm being premature on this, but I could definitely see a scenario. You don't cut a guy like that out of camp, obviously, but I could see one of them scenarios. Like, remember a few years ago, they signed Bennett and Miles Austin, and they both looked like they would kind of flash out that way, but Austin kind of stuck around. Based on the little bit that we've seen so far, I think that kind of production that you got out of Miles Austin may be the level of what you may be getting out of Dwayne Bowe, and I don't know that that's good enough for what you expected to get if you're the Browns signing Dwayne Bowe. I don't know.
That's true. I'm sure they had bigger expectations, although right now, having not seen him or seen him on the field long enough to drop one ball the other day, whether he might be this year's, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the running back last year that came from Houston.
Ben Tate. Ben Tate.
Ben Tate. Yeah, who this year's Ben Tate maybe, who made it through a portion of the season, not much of a portion, before they decided to move on, as they say. So yeah, I hope that's not the case, and hopefully he can contribute and maybe give you on the other side more of what Hartline's been giving you. By the way, I don't think enough was made of the play that Brian Hartline made on that touchdown pass the other day.
How about that? Good.
Incredible.
Man.
Not only does he catch everything, and that ball was rifled in there, but he knew as soon as that ref made the call, hey, no, I was in, I know it, let's go look at the film. He got up, jumping saying, I was in. He knew right away that he had both feet down. Sure enough, he did. But that was a heck of a play, and I just think over the course of this year, Browns fans are going to come to love that guy.
Oh, I'm 100% in agreement with you on that. And by the way, going back to what you asked earlier, John Hughes, and I remembered seeing him in the game. He did not register anything statistically, which is why if you looked over the box score, you wouldn't have seen him. But I knew he played because Mike Pettin talked about him. I had to go pull up Mike Pettin's transcript.
He did play Saturday night?
Yeah, he brought up that John Hughes was one of the guys, when he talked about the line in general, that Hughes was solid against the run on the plays that he was in there. But he's one of those guys also feeling the squeeze because, obviously you've taken that whole line from last year and two guys rookie-wise are stepping in big in Cooper and Shelton. And I'm going to go back to Shelton real quick. We said hopefully this is that Halati Nada type guy. I don't care if it's premature and I don't care if it's just the preseason. That is who the Browns have in Mr. Danny Shelton. And assuming he stays on this roster financially, 10 years from now, you'll be looking back and going, damn, that was a dude right there, because you can just already see that he's the real deal up front. But that depth at the line there, Hughes is one that'll be interesting. As you said, Billy Wynn, I mean, I think unfortunately as much as, and we said this at the beginning of camp, as much as the Browns liked him, I love Billy Wynn. I know him personally outside of the field a little bit, but I think he gets squeezed by the injury here. I think that's definitely something. You know, some of the other names that you mentioned, I don't think that Hawkins has anything to worry about. But I still, Marlon Moore is one that you brought up there. Again, I don't think teams are big on cutting, first 4-round draft picks in their first camp, but I could see them trying to slip him through to the practice squad there, depending on how they feel about their depth at the other places there across there.
And as far as I can see, if you're going to keep Marlon Moore, it's going to be Maley or Pryor, but not both.
Right.
At least that's the way that it kind of appears right now. One of them's going to be on your 53, and the other one won't. And so, yeah, like you say, they might try to slip one through, and I guess it's probably more likely that Maley slips through than Pryor does, just because Pryor's so much higher profile.
And not only that, you got to think that if you're not gonna go forward with Terrell Pryor, knowing that there's a marketplace for him out there, I mean, I would make the 53 with him and then trade him, try to pick me up a mid-round draft pick or something at least, you've got to think that there's value in him. Why just cut him loose and let another team pick him up?
It would be awfully nice, though, wouldn't it, Jerry, to actually have some film of Terrell Pryor catching one pass in an NFL game of some sort, which we haven't seen and no one has seen. And how can we even form an opinion until he gives us a little availability, as we say?
Right, and I think that's going to be what, if anything else, buys him some time here, perhaps, with this team, and gives him an opportunity to head into the regular season. So now Thursday, the Browns got one more preseason game to go. This one is no hands on deck instead of all hands on deck, as they've already said. I think Thaddeus Lewis is going to play a lot in this one, probably 3/4 of the game, and then you'll see a little. We'll all get to figure out who Pat Devlin is together. And see him near the end of that. But a lot of the starters not going to play. You just want to get out of this one safe. This is where you would hope to get a look at some guys. Dwayne Bogue. I get it that he's a starter, but right now he's a third-string receiver on this team because he hasn't played. Get him some reps out there. Terrell Pryor would be a great time to see him. That's the one thing, is that a lot of these guys that we're talking about that are on the bubble will get their one last opportunity to earn themselves a spot on this team. But one way or another, 5 days from now, literally 20 guys will not be on this roster. And I got a feeling that some of the names we've thrown out there are some of the guys that aren't going to be here.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be a packed lineup. I'm going to be flying that day. I'm heading south, and as you know, I'm going to the game in Blacksburg on Monday night. But
yes.
I'm going to be staying at my son's place prior to that. But so Thursday night, I'm afraid the Browns are like third priority for me. I want to be watching Michigan, Utah, and TCU, Minnesota. Long before I would tune into the meaningless fourth exhibition game for the Cleveland Browns, but.
Yes.
It's college. That's Thursday night college football opener, and those two games are sort of the highlights for me that day. But start of a big college football weekend.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we didn't really, the one player, the one position, as hard as it is, we talked about a lot of things on the Browns. The quarterback, the main quarterback for now, Josh McCown. We've mentioned his name a couple times. Obviously, I will say this, and it's Tampa, and it's the preseason. Did I like what I saw from him the other day? Absolutely. That was probably the best I've seen Josh McCown. That's the best I've seen the Browns offense look in years. Honestly, they were so efficient that it had to be a function of the team that they were playing, because they just did not get that efficient overnight. While I do believe they cleaned some things up, they didn't clean that many things up to look as good as they did. It was surgical, those first two drives, how they just boom, 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 took care of business, man. And with that beautiful touchdown to Hartline that you mentioned earlier.
Well, Jerry, I said months ago, and I'm not sitting here saying I told you so, but I thought that at the start of the season, the man on the spot is John DeFilippo. And I was impressed with DeFilippo the other day. I was impressed with the play calling. I was impressed with how they mixed it up. I was impressed with how when they needed 4 or 5 yards on third down, they got 6 or 7 instead of 3 or 4. The running game obviously still isn't clicking big time, but they broke off some nice runs. But, at the very least, DeFilippo showed us what the formula is that the Browns are going to count on to win football games this fall. Have a good defense, have them get you off the field. It's just like anybody else, but it's going to have to be surgical because we don't have great down the field dangerous weaponry. And so it's going to have to be dink and dunk and short passes. And McCown showed you on a couple of occasions that he can do that. He also showed you he can take a shot. He also showed you
too many shots
for a guy his size, and that he can. He's not quite as awkward as Bernie Kosar back there. He's no Johnny Manziel in terms of quickness, but he's got some feet. So I was impressed with what he showed, leadership-wise, execution-wise. Yeah, and he had a couple of throws that were off target. Benjamin bailed him out on one of them. Bo didn't bail him out on another one. And he had a couple of other, but 17 to 23 is 17 to 23. And, I liked more than anything else the kind of the flow of the play calling with DeFilippo calling plays. Could we finally get lucky with an offensive coordinator, Jerry? I mean, stranger things have happened. But I just thought coming out of that game, that was one thing that I was probably happier about than anything else, that and Danny Shelton being a stud. Those are the two things that were my big takeaways. And again, I also thought, I wanted to say, number 30, Ibrahim Campbell, man, that kid looks like a keeper. Kind of almost a hybrid safety linebacker because he's big for a safety. But looks like he's been playing in the NFL for a couple of years already. I'm really glad that they have helped out their safety position because they needed it.
Yeah, a lot of people were high on him, talked about him coming out of the draft there, and I'm glad to see exactly what you're saying there. But with the offense, I agree. Watching the way they ran, I mean, they kept manageable third and manageable downs, and they kept converting third downs, which is something that this offense doesn't always go out there and do. And they were able to run for a third down conversions on third and short when they needed it. I did like the play calling, and I hope that wasn't just a function of the defense that we played or the vanilla defense and all that stuff that people will say. I hope that's a sign of some creativity. And again, it was just it's not even creativity. Sometimes it was common sense stuff like 3rd and 4. Hey, let's just hand off the ball and run and get those 4 yards, and they were able to do that. And I did like the play calling. So that made me feel good. Although I got to say, I sure would have yelled at Johnny if he did this last year when he did this last year. So I have to yell at Josh McCown too. Brother, the hell with lowering your shoulder. I don't care how tough you are. You don't got to prove you're tough to me. We have no quarterbacks right now, man, and I'll be damned if we're going to lose the one almost quarterback that we have because you wanted to be a tough guy and go take on a linebacker, man. You slide, brother. Hit the ground because you got to think of more than yourself. This is a team with no backup quarterback for all intents and purposes.
Oh, obviously the same exact thoughts were going through my mind. I mean, it's well documented how we've had 1 year out of 16 where we had a quarterback start every game. So the odds are not with you, Mr. McCown. So, yeah, slide, take a knee, save yourself. Like, so we're all impressed that you're tough and you can pick up the tough third down carry, but don't go head first, go feet first when you decide to take it to the ground. That way they're not allowed to hit you. Boy, the one shot he took, it was great to see him bounce back up, but those kinds of shots don't lend themselves to 16-game seasons.
No, they do not, my man. Well, we'll see here. And then, of course, let's see. Actually, I hadn't even had a chance to talk to you yet. You and I, no show on Wednesday, so you and I won't catch up again for a week from now. When we come back, we'll know how this season is starting. The final cuts will be made. We'll know what the final roster is going to be for the Browns heading into this season.
Yeah, that's right. And by a week from now, we'll also know whether we still can use Indians and wild card in the same sentence. So we should have a pretty good idea how that whole thing shapes up, too.
And we'll know who's going to start that Buckeyes game that we were talking about. Let's end it there real quick. And what's the latest you're hearing coming out of Buckeyes as they're preparing just a week away from starting this season?
There has certainly been no definitive word, and none of the beat writers or the people that I talk to are any smarter than they were about that final decision. I stick with my prediction that all three guys, including Braxton Miller, will take a snap from center during that game. Meyer's track record is one of having success with multiple quarterbacks. I'm a J.T. Barrett guy. Most of the people that have been watching practice have been of the opinion that J.T. Barrett is the offense moves better with J.T. Barrett. That's what Urban Meyer said 1 year ago when he and Cardale Jones were competing for the job. I don't think that has changed since in terms of all the things that the quarterback in Meyer's offense has to do with regard to decision making, with regard to ball handling, and with regard to getting the ball distributed to playmakers. I think Barrett Jones, what he doesn't do is scare the pants off the defense by forcing them to defend not only the 50 yards wide of the field, but 50 yards down the field as well. So he gives that element. I think Meyer will make use of both of them. I would be very surprised if either of those two quarterbacks sits his butt on the bench for the entire game against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, can't wait, man. We're here. We're on the verge of it, man. By the next time you and I talk, we'll be right up against kick. So what is your travel schedule? Are you available Monday? I just realized that.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I can probably call in. Actually, we're going to be driving Monday up from North Carolina up to Blacksburg, Virginia.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but if I have to call you from the car, how about we'll just give it a shot? I'm going to be either on the road to Blacksburg or already in Blacksburg by about the time you and I normally talk on Monday. So I'll just I'll call you that morning or text you. They'll just be in touch and let you know what it looks like, and we should be able to have at least some conversation that day.
No, that's perfect. Hey, we're booking this on the air. I just realized it. I'm like, hey, I just told Dan I'm not here Wednesday. By the way, I'm not here Wednesday because I'm very anxious for Wednesday. I have a meeting up at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting. I don't know if I mentioned when you were on the air, but I'm ready to launch. They're getting ready to launch a specific 6-month supplementary program specifically for sports broadcast, play-by-play, producing, all of that stuff. And it'll be for like graduates of the school or people that are in radio already but want to ever. And they're going to bring me on board, it looks like, as one of the instructors of that. So Wednesday, got kind of the first meeting. They can't even answer many questions. It's like a thing that they're doing here, and they're actually putting the curriculum together, which is a little bit intimidating. I'm not a professional teacher here. This is kind of interesting. But Wednesday, that's what I'll be doing, and I'm very interested in all of that. But
yeah, sounds good. I'm sure whatever happens, you'll be an asset to the organization. I mean, sounds like it's a fun gig for you. Hope it turns out to be something long-term and maybe even something full-time for you somewhere down the line.
Well, that's what this is going to be. I've been part-time for a little bit now helping out up there, but this could branch into something, which will unfortunately may have to adjust the schedule of the show even more, but we can make that work. But so I'm just like, hey, I just realized on the air live, I'm telling Dan no show Wednesday. Make sure he's here Monday, but that's great. So we'll be able to catch up Monday. You'll be on your way to the game. We'll be kicking off the Buckeyes season on Monday. We'll be seeing where the Browns. So I cannot wait, and we'll know if the thriving or if the Beats week.
Do it.
Are always a great time. They will be back Friday, but Dan will not be back with us until a week from today. So looking forward to that one. As we said, he will be live from the scene of the crime as the Buckeyes prepare to avenge that loss last season to the Virginia Tech. Oh, yeah, heading down to Blacksburg. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk to Dan next Monday. Let's take a break and get the rest of this show going. We're not done yet. We'll be right back. Fantasy football. You guys have been asking me. We have a slot left open, and I'm going to fill it this week, and it's free. I'll tell you how you can get in and win a championship belt courtesy of Fantasy Jocks. We'll set the stage for the Indians and the Blue Jays. Phones are back open, 216-539-7535. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of The Fix coming up next.
To the Sports Fix. If you want to be my lover.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
In baseball, miracles can happen when a team works together.
2 out, bottom of the ninth, down to their last strike.
The same is true in the fight against cancer. That's why MLB has teamed up with Stand Up to Cancer. Because we believe that when we all stand up together,
41,000 on their feet.
We can make cancer history.
Now everybody's standing. What a buzz in this building.
This is beyond a dream. Stand up with MLB at standuptocancer.org.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
This is the Sports Fix. What is your name?
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Dude, what do you want?
Well, it's this rug I have. It really tied the room together.
We are not a show to be swept under the rug. We are a show to be heard.
It's the Sports Fix.
back to the Sports Fix Live, wrapping things up. Final segment of the day here on the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back with you here. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to Dan Wismar for being with us. From the Cleveland fan, and everybody hates Cleveland. Of course, Dan's with us every Monday and Wednesday right here on the Sports Fix. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to the callers earlier. Heard from Bruce, heard from the men. When you guys get your fix. Phones are open 24/7. We will not be back live until Friday, but you guys can keep the conversation going all week long, as we tell you all the time. 216-539-7535. Anything you've heard us talk about. By the time we come back live, the Browns' final preseason game will be in the books, and they'll be closing in on the final roster there. All the things we talked about today. Let's see how it plays out. The Indians heading to Toronto. I'll get to set up on that one here in just a moment. But Friday, we're live in the house. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com, all scheduled to be in the house. BJ Riddell, author of Fantasy Football for Winners, will be in the house as well, helping you guys get ready for your fantasy football drafts. And speaking of fantasy football, of course, what a segue that was. Our Sports Fix Fantasy Football Challenge is underway. The draft is a week from tomorrow, a week from Tuesday, September the 8th, right on the verge of the NFL season starting after final cuts. I always like to wait until final cuts are over for us to do our draft. I just think it's an unfair position to put teams in otherwise, and players and all of that. So next Tuesday online will be our live draft. You can do it anywhere from your phone, from your device, from your home, etc. and so forth. We have one open slot remaining in the Sports Fix Fantasy Challenge, brought to you by FantasyJocks.com. You hear us talk about them all the time. Your fantasy sports superstore. They are providing a championship belt going to the winner of this year's Fantasy Football Sports Fix Challenge. Every year, great prizes. This year, no different. Somebody's going to put that belt on your shoulder, around their waist, and you will be the champion of this year's Sports Fix Fantasy Football League. We've got a few of the usual suspects, a couple of newcomers in this year's league, and we have one slot remaining open for somebody to enter. Now, we always have more people wanting in than availability, so if you want to play in the Sports Fix Fantasy Football Challenge, brought to you by FantasyJocks.com, hit us up. Just send me an email, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Message us on Facebook or Twitter, Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Let me know you want that final spot in the Sports Fix Fantasy League. We'll draw one of you because, as I said, there's going to be more than one person, and you'll get to enter. It's free. It costs you nothing. Matter of fact, for those of you that listen to the show, you know we talk about every week the various things in our league, so you'll get your name mentioned from time to time. Well, that could be good. That could be bad, depending on what side of the standings you're on, but it's a great time. It's an additional thing for us to interact with here on the show, and I love providing that championship belt to one of you guys who wins. So hit us up. Let me know if you want in. We've got one slot remaining, and the draft will be next Tuesday. I'll let you guys know more about that on Friday when we get back. Remember, no live Sports Fix until Friday this week. Big meeting up at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, and I'll let you guys know on Friday how that went. But depending on how things shake out on Wednesday, that may require us completely adjusting the schedule of the Sports Fix. Now, I'll just give you guys a heads up now of what I'm thinking of doing, because really, we've talked about this from time to time. My schedule is stretched so thin that it's become a challenge to figure out how to do everything that I want to do. And the Sports Fix is my baby. This is us, you and me, and we've built this thing together, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. But that being said, with wrestling being such a big expanded part of my schedule again, with the training schedule that goes with that, with the football, and then basketball coming up on top of that, with play-by-play season being in full swing, and now adding the Ohio Center for Broadcasting as well, depending on the schedules of things, but based on some of my preliminary talks with them, it looks like we may settle into perhaps, at least for this upcoming football season, a Monday-Friday routine, which would enable us to be live 2 days a week, start the week, end the week, have you guys have some phone calls, talk to you guys live, break down the football every weekend, preview the week coming up, all of those things, And so don't quote me on this, but some of my early kind of figuring out how to adjust the schedule, that's what we may be looking at. There is the possibility of some different alterations, and it may end up where the Sports Fix is unfortunately a weekly broadcast. But my goal is to try to remain multiple times a week. And as of now, of course, the best laid plans of mice and men. As of now, the plan would be perhaps to settle into a Monday, Friday routine, as I would definitely be teaching up to school on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, which would eat up the middle part of the week. But we'll see. I'm still jumping the gun a little bit. We'll meet on Wednesday, and we'll talk to you guys more, and we'll figure something out. Meanwhile, we'll be back here on Friday. By that time, will we still be talking about the Cleveland Indians? They're hot. They're running into a red-hot buzzsaw in the Toronto Blue Jays. And by the time we come back, that series will be in the books. Salazar and David Price, Cody Anderson and Marco Estrada, Trevor Bauer, and R.A. Dickey, your starting matchups for this one. These teams have split the 4 games that they played so far this season. Let's see what the Indians can do, because if they come off of a strong homestand with an even stronger road trip, then we can have some fun talking about this for the next few weeks. And I'm very excited to see what the Indians can do as they hit it with the Toronto Blue Jays. On Thursday, the day before we come back, of course, there is the absolutely meaningless final preseason game for the Cleveland Browns. They'll take on the Chicago Bears in a game that nobody wants to play except the guys who need to make a spot on this team. Everybody else just wants to fast forward to the start of the season. Josh McCown's not going to be out there. Mike Pettin already said many of the starters expected not to play in this one. Hopefully we'll get to see some time out of some other guys getting an opportunity with the starters resting. Either way, the game won't mean a whole lot if you're not depending on a spot on the team. But come Saturday, what happens Thursday will help shape that. Between now and this weekend, they pair off the final roster spots. So we'll see what happens Thursday night. When we come back on Friday, we'll have that final game, and Jonathan Knight and I will be able to look ahead and speculate who's going to be on the bubble, who's going to make that final roster. We'll talk about the Indians. We'll look ahead to their weekend. Final previews, looking ahead to the Buckeyes on Monday and more. That's all coming Friday when we join you back here live. In the meantime, during the week, hey, do us a favor. Tell your friends to tune in and listen here as we talked about the Browns preseason today, the Indians, Shapiro. We hit a lot, and we're going to do it even more on Friday. Share the show if you don't mind, and let somebody else know that you indeed get your fix. In the meantime, I want to thank you guys for being with us here, and when we come back, it's going to be another month. We will be in September, baby, and heading down the home stretch of 2015. I'm glad you guys choose to do it with us every day when we're on the air. Enjoy your week, guys. Go Tribe. Go Browns, go everybody. Hey, man, even if they're not playing, go Cavs. Go be a day better than you were the last time. Guys, enjoy your week. College football season starting off, as Dan was bringing up. A couple of big games on Thursday, and we'll be back here Friday to start doing the thing, talk about it all, get you set for the weekend. Talking Browns, Cavs, Tribe, Buckeyes, and more, live with Jonathan Knight, with Mike Brandenberry. Who knows who's going to be here Friday on the Sports Fix? I'll be here. Will you be here? You better be. We'll see you live at noon, same bat time, same bat channel, right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland and beyond, wherever you're at. Have a great week, and we'll see you Friday live at noon, right here on the Sports Fix.
Get it popping up with Steph Flaw. Whole state monster. This the home of King James. We are not the empire, but this is where the kings play. Cleveland, let's go.
We rep our city. Blue lights separate the ground from the gritty. We're sick with it. Hood class cover any city that